morning, everybody. Planning Forum, the PG department of Hans Raj Mahila Mahavidyalaya, welcomes you all in this online PPT presentation competition, where we are very pleased to see that students from various colleges from all over India have participated in this competition and have made this competition a big success. So a special thanks to our teachers who always motivate us to organize such competition. Let me once repeat the rules for you all. This is an individual competition, so teams are not allowed. Every participant will be given 10 to 12 minutes to present their PPT. There is no minimum time. One bell will ring at 11 minutes and then the final bell will ring at 12 minutes. So kindly ensure that you do not exceed the time limit. Otherwise, you will be considered as disqualified. Every participant need to switch on their cameras as well as microphones before presenting their PPT, and please ask the moderator, that is me, to start your time when you are ready to go. The medium of presentation could be any Hindi, English or Punjabi. While presenting your PPT, please ensure that you must not reveal your name, either your institution's name. You can use your tags A1, A2, A3 and so on. So shall we start, ma'am? So, ma'am, shall we start?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So yes, ma'am has granted the permission to spend A4. Am I audible? Please start.
Ma'am, is my screen visible to you?
Yes, you are visible. Yes, you are visible.
Madam, can you please start my time?
Yes, started. Okay.
Now let us talk about Indian economic after independence era. The Indian economic introduction to the Indian economy. The Indian economy is one of the vast economy in the world after British rules never made any significant change for the benefit of the social sector, and this harmed the productivity capacity of the economy. Therefore, once India became independent, systematic organization, the economy was a real challenge for the government of that time. So many steps were taken at that time. Many important strategic decisions were taken by 1956, which are still shaping India's economic journey. This was a some picture of the meeting which was held in 1956 to strongest the Indian economy. The main sector which affect the economic outer structures was the agriculture sector, industrial sector, service sector, food processing sector, and manufacturing sector. How it's contribute? Agriculture 53, manufacturing, and the other sectors that affect the economy of India. Then agriculture, which was the one of the sector of economy, one of the most important sector of Indian economy, remains agriculture. However, more than 50% of the total population of the country is still dependent on agriculture. Green Revolution helps a lot in solving the food problem and to raise the agriculture sector. The services enhanced by the Green Revolution in the agriculture sector of Indian economy are as follows: acquiring more area for cultivating purpose, expanding irrigation facilities, use of improved and advanced high-yielding variety of seeds, implementing better techniques that emerged from agriculture research, water management, plant protection activities through prudent use of fertilizers, pesticides, and cropping application. Increasing in agriculture sector, how agriculture sector increased from 1950 to 2016. That was a graph of that one. Next is the sector of industrial sector, industry sector. Another important part of the Indian economy is the industrial sector. Changes such as the end of the Permit Raj and opening of the economy were welcomed in the country. As a result of these changes, industrial potential of the economy has increased in 1991. It has ability to produce different products. It has a capacity to give employment. It has a capacity to adjust to the changing taste of the consumers. It helps the economy earn foreign currency, which we use to finance our imports. Next one, the major sector that affect the economy of India is the service sector. The sector that benefited most from the new economic policy was the service sector: banking, financial business process, outsourcing, and most important information technology service have seen double. 60% of the GDP contribution come from the service sector. New employment opportunities are being created in this sector. Opening of transportation, tourism, and medical sector have also been to the growth of service sector competencies. Economic sector. How the service sector affect the economic low incomes, primary and secondary, how it increases and affect the economic sector. That was a graph of that one thing. The other sector that affect the economy was the major food sector. The vast availability of raw material sources, favorable policies, measures, and number inventors have led India to be considered as a key attractive market for the sector. The total consumption of the food and beverage segment in India is expected to increase from $369 to $1.14 by 2025. It is the second largest producer of food grains in the world, second only by China. This sector has huge potential in India due to increasing urbanization, income levels, and a high preference for packaged and processed food. Next one is the figure of the food processing industry. That was the outlay, expenditure, and achievement. How 2004 the achievement was 73, and 2000 by 2010 the achievement was rise to 99%. Future of the economic, the main portion which we have to come on the point and the focus is the future of the Indian economy. To make India a $5 ton economy by 2030 and to achieve consist of 8% growth, NITI Aayog has released a comprehension document titled Strategy for New India at the rate 75. Its main objectives are doubling farming incomes, creating an all India talent pool for the enter and states together, such as the All India Service. Number three, the point of the future of the Indian economy, according to that, was the providing a major boost to the Make in India campaign, achieving 22% tax of GDP ratio by 2023, up from the current 70%. So raised to from 70% to 22% is a great task for the Indian economy, achieving 36% of investment rate by 2023, up from a current 29%. That was another fact to be pointed out today to the future of the Indian economy. This was guided by unwavering democratic credence and strong government leadership. India is an emerging superpower with a vibrant economic climate. And that was all over the overview of the Indian economics, how it's contribute in the Indian economy. Thank you. Well,
Yes, thank you so much, A4. Please make K5 the host.
Am I visible to you?
Yes, you are visible.
Uh, okay. Ma'am, is my presentation is visible to you and my voice is audible?
Yes, you're audible and visible, A5.
Ma'am, now you can start my time.
Okay, sure.
Good afternoon, everyone, the respected teachers and my fellow listeners. Well, I'm here to speaking to you today about the evolution of Indian economy in post-independence era, a critical appraisal. Well, let me start with your very short story. There was a man after the independence, he used to row his field with a bullock cart. In late 70s, he got a tractor. In late 90s, he get a modified tractor. And now he has been equipped with latest technologies and equipment. Well, here you can see how a person revolutionized from a bullock to the latest equipment. Now, in the coming presentation, you will know why this is the critical appraisal and how our economy is going in the same way. So let's start with this. Well, it's been 75 years since India got the independence. And well, India works with the two major components, and it is one of the successful economy of all world. Now, getting to the pre-independence time, well, you can see on your screen that India's shares of world income in 1700 is 22.6%, while it shrank to 3.8% in 1952. While the Britishers claims that they were the first one who bring about the industrialization in India. But if we look into the data, we get to know that England was the one. Then, what the Britishers, the three main contributions of the Britishers to the Indian economy? Well, the first is the abstract poverty, the second is the illiteracy, and the third is the drain of poverty or resources. Well, to get you informed, A Drain of Poverty is written by Dada Bhai Nehruji, in which he inculcates how the Britishers took resources out of the India and make India a poverty-stricken economy. Well, apart from the independence, when our economy start to grow on by own, their motive is self-reliance, social justice, and elevation of poverty. Just after the independence, Indian used to have a mixed economy, and first what they did is to make the planning commission. When the objective of the planning commission is to set a clearly well-defined outline project for the India. Well, they use the model of Harvard-Dumont model, which occupies the saving and investment model. They clearly specify if we want to grow our economy, we should be given preference to the saving as well as the investment. Well, there are some more policies like industrial policy and etc. Well, the industrial policy focuses on self-reliance, more output, etc. and etc. Well, but unfortunately, these policies are not very efficient. The major reason behind is that there is unmarked check on the population growth, and the our PSUs were not up to the mark. Well, these are some factors why these plans were unfortunately insufficient to empower our poverty. And of course, it also indulges in a great poverty. Well, in the 1964, Jawaharlal Nehru died. And after just the demise of Jawaharlal Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri ji took the office and reformed some policies. Well, the reform policies are first the importance of private enterprise and foreign investment. Lal Bahadur Shastri ji thought that if Indians want to grow their economy and should have a strong hold, there should be must allowance of foreign investment. Also, we should promote the private enterprise. Well, the second thing is the importance of self-sufficiency in agriculture. Lal Bahadur Shastri ji thought that India should be a very strong hold on agriculture, because in that time more than 50% of our population is based on agricultural product. Therefore, in the year 1964, Green Revolution took part in part of Punjab, Haryana, as well as some part of Western UP. The third revolution is the White Revolution. Well, the White Revolution was initiated by Lal Bahadur Shastri. It is the increase in the production of milk so that the cooperative societies which were formed before in the 1940s can fight from the foreign policies, as well as this took by seeing the nutritional value which can be accomplished by our Indian nation or the people of our India. Now, on your screen, you can see the two graphs. The first is the comparison between the India and China GDP. Well, you can look in the 1950s till the 1970s. The GDP is quite very much same. But after that, there is a high pace in the GDP of China as compared to India. Well, there are a lot of reasons behind this. Maybe this is the industrialization, the better reforms, and the better policies. And this is the reason why our Indian GDP is still the 4x time less than the China GDP. On the right-hand side, you can see the sector contribution of GDP. Well, by seeing this graph, you can easily predict that after independence, our major contribution or the major contribution towards our GDP is from agriculture sector. While we get into the industrialization, farms over revolution happened, and then our agriculture dependence on the agriculture sector was lessened, and the service and the other sector got uprised. Well, now after the demise of Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi took the office in charge. Well, Indira Gandhi did the two things. First is the rupee devaluation. Well, Indira Gandhi thought that if we devaluate the money value, there will be more exports. But the things not goes as well planned, because instead of getting more exports, the inflation in our country increases. Well, the second is the back nationalization, which results in a two profitable thing: the highest saving and the spread of banking in rural areas. But it comes with a problem that is called crony capitalism. Well, crony capitalism is when private and the public capital pollutes and harm the economy. Well, these two reforms is welcomed as well as hated by our country as equal parts. In the year 1977, Janata Party wins the election and introduced demonetization 1.0. Well, the 50, 500, and the 1,000 notes were withdrawn from the economy, and this is the major stroke of our economy as well. Well, the Janata Party also reformed foreign policies, which is also a very major breakthrough in our economy because the many big MNCs like IBM, Coke were made to leave the country, and it hampers our economy very drastically. Well, in 1980s, the wheels turned around and Indira Gandhi again came to power and make some reforms. The reforms get effect in the form of that is abandoning the license Raj, the Gunda Raj, and also she reforms the foreign policy so that it can boost our economy. And again, these MNCs were welcomed so that they can come and invest in our economy. Well, now we talk about the Rajiv Gandhi and the 1984 reforms. Well, Rajiv Gandhi also took various reforms like he made IT revolution, telecom revolution, and less direct taxes. Well, these all reforms gradually help in the more investment, more consumptions, and more savings, and although increase our economy very well. But we met with an accident in 1984, which is called the Bhopal gas tragedy, which took all our concerns, and we get into the regulation and control. Well, to be clarified, regulations are the things which support the industries, while its control is to suppress the industry. So we get to the various regulations like Environmental Act and Pollution Act, so that the economy can be grown up, but with a stability and with a great potential and sustainability. Well, now we talked about the crisis of 1990. Well, if I was to give the reason why the crisis happened, it is due to the government is overspending on consumer goods rather than the capital goods, which at the end of the day did not increasing the employment of our economy, did not giving the jobs to the people. Because if we invest in the capital goods, they will have the capacity to produce the employment. Well, there are some benefits of this crisis, although, and these whole collaboratively called the LPG. Well, its full form is Liberalization, Privatization, and Globalization. And to inform you, it is being done by our 13th Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. Well, there are various impacts of these crises. For example, there is total abandoning of license Raj. The Nabard Sevi, these were either created or empowered in our country. There are various bank reforms, the disinvestment of PSU, and the list goes on and on. Well, now we talked about the present scenario. Well, there are quite a good reforms, but there are three main reforms which are undergoing in our economy under the super guidance of Narendra Modi. Well, these are GST, IBC, and Niti Aayog. Well, the GST covers the whole structure of indirect taxes, and under the IBC, the bank finances are given heavy weight, while the Niti Aayog, the ease of doing business is getting the front seat. Well, if I talked about the present scenario of our country, we all know we are fighting with a great pandemic. Well, our economy shrank or contract in a very dubious way, but still there are various reforms and there is a various plans which are being implemented in the economy so that our economy can be supported, and we all are vigorously wanted that it can again get to the track as it was previously. Well, there are many reforms. Again, I'm saying that there are GSTs, the Niti Aayog is making different plans. We are disinvesting in PSUs which can fill up to our disinvest criteria, and etc. and etc. Well, in the recent budget, you can also see that the part of GDP is being concerned towards the IT and pharmaceutical company so that it can provide a base and we can fight pandemic and get our economy back to our life. Well, now you can know why I call this as a critical appraisal, and now you know how my farmers get well-equipped equipments or technology from a bulb. Well, this is a critical appraisal because there are up and downs you can see. For example, the 1964 thing or the 1991 reforms, etc. and etc. So this is my journey, and I thought you like it. Thank you for giving me your time and being such a nice audience.
Thank you so much, A5, for a wonderful presentation.
Welcome, ma'am.
Please make A6 the host so that she can start. A6, you may please start now.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible and visible.
Okay. Ishpit, you can start my time.
Yes, noted. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My tag is A6, and the topic of the presentation is Evolution of Indian Economy in Post-Independence Era. 1947 India, one of those countries which was ruled by the Britishers for a long period of time. During their ruling period, they had done so much of torture on the Indian people that they can see there is no ray of hope which can make their country a liberal country. Britishers has divided the economy into every sector. When we can say in the religion sector, we can say in religion, in business, in political estate, and many more. India was just divided in each and every sector by the Britishers. But soon, due to our freedom fighters, India became a liberal country on 15th August 1947. Now let us see how much development India has done from 1947 to 2021. If we talk about India's GDP, in 1947, India's GDP is $1.3 billion, whereas in 2021, $2.690 trillion was India's GDP. It means in 1947, 3.9% is world GDP, while in 2021, India's GDP is 8.1%. If we talk about the currency, India 1947, $1 is equals to 1 Indian rupee, while in 2021, $1 is equals to 73 Indian rupee. If we talk about the population, we can see that in 1947, population of India is 36 crores, while in 2021, it increases to 4 times and the population reaches to 140 crores. If we talk about the religion, in 1947, 84% were Hindu, 9.8% Islam, 2.3% Christians, 1.89% Sikh, 0.4% Buddhist, 0.46% Jainism, and many others. If we take this into 2021, there are 79.8% Hindu, 14.2% Islam, 2.3% Christians, 1.7% Sikh, 0.7% Buddhism, 0.4% Jains, and many others. Now let us take a look at the literacy rate of India in 1947 and in 2021. In 1947, the literacy rate was just 16%. But coming to 2021, people get more educated and the literacy rate reaches to 77.7%. Poverty rate. If we can see that as India in 1947 is not much as good as 2021, so the poverty rate in India 1947 is 70%, which is very less which is very more as compared to 2021, because in 2021 the poverty rate declines to 20%. If we talk about the fertility rate, in 1947 the fertility rate is 6 births per woman, but in 2021 fertility rate is 2 births per woman. Network railway station. If we think that in 1947, Britishers gave a frame to India's network, but in 2021, India's railway network is Asia's second and world's fourth largest railway system. If we talk about the military budget, in 1947, the military budget is $190 million, while in 2021, it is $18.48 billion. Through this, we can see that the much development in 1947 till 2021, hoping that in coming years, India will develop more and it will be called as the developed country soon. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you so much, A5, for your presentation. A7, you may start now, please. Okay. Yes, please start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to present on the topic evolution of Indian economy on agriculture sector. Agriculture sector continues to be an important part in the Indian economy generates uh, generates livelihood for more 70% of the population since independence. India has made much more progress in agriculture. Indian agriculture, which grew at the rate of about 1% per annum during the 50 years before independence, uh, has grown at the rate of about 2.6% per annum in the past independence era. Over 50 years since its independence, India has made immense progress towards food security. Prior to the mid 1960s, India relied on the import and food aids to meet domestic requirements. Scheduled commercial bank contributes the major share, that is 78 to 80% in agriculture sector. Shares of all cooperated banks is about 15 to 16%, and rest of the 5% is contributed by RRBs. Green Revolution. Green Revolution. Green Revolution is the period from 1960 to 1985. In this period of time, the production of rice and wheat has been increased. We saw that the doubling of yield per hectare, total productivity, and total food production in developing countries has been increased. Accordingly, the global production of cereals increased by 174% and between 1950 to 1990, while the global production increased by 110%. Impact of Green Revolution on food grains. Green Revolution has affected the food grains like rice and wheat. In 1960 to 61, the production of rice was 35 million tons, which increased to 106.5 million tons in 2013-14. Production of wheat was 11 million tons in 1960 to 61, which increased to 95.9% in 2013 and 14. Impact of Green Revolution on cash crops. Cash crops are the crops like sugarcane, cotton, jute, oilseed, etc. In 1960 to 61, the production of sugarcane was 110 million tons, which increased to 350 million tons in 2013 and 14. Production of cotton was 6 million tons in 1960 to 61, which increased to 36.7 in 2013 and 14. Due to Green Revolution, consumption of fertilizers has also increased. We can see from this graph that in 1980 to 81, the consumption of fertilizer was maximum 40.69%, which in 2016-17 increased to 167.35%. GDP in agriculture sector has also decreased. We can see from the given table that in 1950 to 51, GDP was 55.9% in agriculture sector, which decreased to 19.5 in 2007 and 8. But on the other hand, in industrial sector, GDP has increased. As we can see, in 1950 to 51, GDP of industrial sector was 14.9, and which increases to 24.9% in 2007 and 8. GDP in the economy is continuously falling. In 2009 and 10. It was 14.6%, which declined to 13.9 in 2013-14. The slide is depicting the trend in the agriculture growth in 2007 to 8 to 2013-14 as compared to the overall GDP growth. The Green Revolution resulted in the record grain output of 131 million tons in 1987 to 89. This established India as one of the world's biggest agriculture producer. Yield per unit of farmland improved by more than 30% between 1947. India has since rising inflation in the last few years, with World Bank data showing that consumer price inflation grew from just under 2.5 in 2017 to nearly 7.7 in 2019. This graph shows the daily wages of agriculture sector. We can see that in 2016, the daily wages of agriculture sector was 12.1%, which increased to 15.9% in 2017. But in 2020, it decreases to 9.8% as due to COVID-19, which is prevailing in the country. During independence, Indian economy was facing the adverse effect of zamindari system, which forced the farmers to work and collect rent as a tax. India tries and succeeded to remove the zamindari system from the economy and hence increase the productivity in agriculture sector. The agriculture sector in India is considered to be the backbone of its economy. Agriculture is the source of livelihood for half of the population. It contributes about 18% of the total gross domestic products of Indian agriculture sector in India. India is also the largest employer, contributes 49% of the total workforce. The growth rate of agriculture in India mainly depends upon the rainfall, as the majority of the cultivated area in India depends upon the rainfall. In the end, I will say that there should be strong policy to boost the productivity of agriculture sector. The effects of the scheme can also be analyzed after implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, A7, for your wonderful presentation. Please make A9 the host.
Okay.
A9, you may please start now.
Yes, ma'am. I'm just sharing my screen. Give me a few seconds.
Yes, please switch on your camera too.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, is it visible? Me and my presentation?
Yes, you're visible.
May I start now?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. First of all, a very good afternoon to everyone. I'm here with a presentation titling The Revolution, the Evolution of Indian Economy in Post-Independence Era, a Critical Analysis. Well, for today, you can call me A9. I'm the presenter. Before going any further, let's dive into the history thing and let's turn a few pages of history now. We were under British rule, right? And colonialism. The biggest impact of this happened to be like it transformed our country, India, into a net supply of raw materials. And also we were forced to be a market for their products. The country's growth rate during the first half of the 20th century was less than 2%, and growth rate of per capita output was around 0.5%. This was the situation. Well, as far as this industrial sector is concerned, it was overwhelmingly going very good, but whom? The British industrialists and the British Empire. They wanted our farmers to grow cotton, indigo, jute, brown, sugarcane, these kind of, these kind of raw materials they wanted to have, and hence agriculture was almost fully commercialized. The extent of commercial agriculture went so far as to make even peasants purchase their food requirements from shops and towns. And this fall in production of food crops was responsible for frequent famines in India during the British days. Well, whatever the situations were, we overcame them, and the independence that we achieved, that we got at the end. It's very important to talk about India's situation in conditions when we got the independence. At the time of independence, India had a population about 3.4 crores, right? Its literacy rate was really bad. It was like around 10 to 12%. India declared its independence. 1947, GDP was 2.7 lakh crore, account for a paltry 3% of the world's total GDP. May I please repeat, just 3% in 1947. Well, more than half of India's GDP came from the agriculture sector at a time, 1947. The nation produced around 50 million tons of food grains. And despite producing more than half times that today, agriculture now shows that, it makes up around 16% of Indian economy, signifying that we have immensely shifted our economy with enhancement of you can say that we have enhanced our structural strength up there, implementation of liberalization policies and all in the early 1990s, and per capita income from 1947. You can say it was very sketchy at the time, but still what we can estimate per capita income from that is India's share of total income fell as low as 3.8% in 1952. Today is much better now. Well, let's talk about something where we felt like, yeah, this is the time we have to go further, change the face of our Indian economy. Let's do it up. It's a very simple chart up here, economic growth. It requires changes. When you allow changes in an economy, it becomes economic development. And the development word itself signifies the overall development. Let me tell you something. Development of Indian economy was to be driven on the wheels of agricultural advancement, manufacturing strengthening, service sector infrastructural enhancement, telecommunications strengthening, and the financial sector was also to be strengthened. Indian economy changes began. Industrial sector, a colonial government and its industrialization had to be deindustrialized at that time. Okay. British manufactured goods in India were they wanted to sell their goods and products in India, and we were forced to, let them take away our resources. It was really a very it was not a good situation for any economy, like to be forced to do things. Economy requires freedom to enhance itself, isn't it? Jamshedji Tata began the iron and steel industries in India during the British rule, and that also has to be, utilized to its optimum level as far as, the economy to get strengthened after the independence is concerned. So these were the things up there where changes started to take place. The first thing that I want to talk about after the post-independence scene is incomes started expanding, right? Since 1947, India had achieved tremendous progress, for sure. The gross product, the gross domestic product, that is the GDP, increased from rupees 2,939 billion during the 1950-51 to rupees 56,330 billion during 2011-12. Well, 2018-19, if we talk about that thing, India's GDP was valued at an estimated rupees 1,40,776 billion, and 2011-12 constant prices are taken care of while we are giving these statistics up now. At the same time, the average Indian citizen earned an income of around 7,513 during 1951. That increased up to 41,255 in 2011 and 12. So the per capita income increased in real terms despite a significant increase in the population of the country. We're talking about it in the next slides. So income expanded. Agriculture and allied sectors also saw a great boom that was required also. See, the real gross value added by the agriculture, forestry, and allied sectors went up from around rupees 1,502 billion in 50-51 to around 22,263 billion as per the 2011 and 12 calculations are concerned. Green revolutions, white revolutions, these significantly raised agricultural productivity and increased food grain production. The net production of food grains in India increased from around 48 million tons during the 1950s to a massive 241 million tons during 2017-18. It continues to be one of the largest producers of rice, wheat, and various fruits and vegetables in the world, and is also leader in milk production. I talked about the white revolution, right? So we saw immense improvements in fields of agriculture and allied sectors. But there is also a topic that should be raised up here, that heavy dependency on any of a sector. And if it is a kind of weakness up there, it's always going to be a bad effect on the employment thing also. Let's move further. What was diversified was the industrial sector. In services, new sectors such as information technology and telecommunications have transformed the landscape, creating new opportunities such as e-commerce and startups. India's IT skills are renowned, world over. We all know about it. Conventional services, you talk about in terms of real gross value added manufacturing, construction, electricity, gas, water supply sector stood around rupees 401 billion during 1950-51, and presently the sector is valued around 36,684 billion. It's pretty awesome, isn't it? Let's move further. I want to talk about building India now. Building a nation after gaining independence, all your own is a big thing. And India has made significant headway in infrastructure and worked over the years to establish a robust transport network. The length, it is really important. I want to highlight this thing. The length of roads increased from around 0.4 million, just 0.4 million kilometers during the 1950s to around 5.9 million kilometers post 2016. It's a big achievement, isn't it? Let me talk about the power sector now. The total energy generated by the hydrothermal and nuclear sectors increased from only 5.1 billion kilowatt hour during 1950-51 to 1,303.5 billion kilowatt during 2017-18. India's installed plant capacity went up to around, you can say, 2.3 thousand megawatt during 15-15 to around 400,000, more precisely saying 399,000 megawatt as of 2017-18. The LPG model is a significant thing that came into and made its place in the Indian economy, and we cannot ignore it, isn't it, when we are talking about the enhancements and improvements of the Indian economy post-independence. Say, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. The model, July 24 and 1991, it came into, like you can say, it was announced and took its place in the Indian economy. Many things came towards India's way, like it increased the growth rate, isn't it? Employment was generated, per capita income was increased, exports increased, but along with it, negative outcomes were also not less in number, isn't it? GDP had gone down drastically to 18% as far as the share of agriculture is concerned. More MNCs than multinational companies are competing, local businesses and companies. Globalization has also contributed to the destruction of environment, pollution and all. LPG policy led to widening of income gaps. And being students of economics, we all know the uniformity. It's very important as far as the share of income is concerned. So these were the things that was talked about in the LPG model. Let's move further, converging with the world. It's one of the most important things as far as this modern development of an economy is concerned. See, an LPG model has contributed heavily as far as connecting and converging with the world is concerned, as far as the economy of India is concerned. Today, India has developed a significant footprint in the global economy. The value of exports of goods and services stood at just around USD 0.1 billion during 50-51, while merchandise exports were valued at USD 330 billion in 2018. Big thing, exports have exponentially increased. So we are converged a lot. We will be converging and all. There's a long path to be gone, and hopefully we'll be more connected in the coming years. Development in progress and development progresses. These two things are really important, and I want to talk about it. As far as literacy is concerned, it was around 18.3% during 1950, 10 to 12% in around 1947, and today. And let me talk about also the 1990s, it was around 73%. It is much more better these days, and it'll be closing much better positions in statistics in the coming years, or we can be hopeful about it. Household access to safe drinking water at the all India level improved from 81.4% during 1941 to 91.4% during 2011. Well, all these things are important, and all these things are awesome to talk about, but is this all that we want to achieve? No, they are incomplete objectives as well. Poverty, unemployment, population problems, literacy and education system, infrastructure, and more more development is required, the rural development. It is an important topic to be talking about. So all these things are there that we need to talk about, that we need to do something about it in a more enhanced way. That's all for today. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, A5, for a wonderful A9 for a wonderful presentation.
So I'm going to invite our first participant with code B2 to present their PPT.
Ma'am, may I share my screen?
Yes, you can share.
Okay. Am I visible and audible?
Yes.
Thank you. May I start?
Yeah, sure.
A very good morning to everyone. Let's have a short insight of the evolution of Indian economy in the post-independence era. India's economy journey after independence. So before looking at the incredible milestones achieved by India in the last 75 years, let's pay a tribute to the India's leading lights. Indian freedom fighters. Mahatma Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh, the Indian freedom fighters who contributed to the Indian independence. In the presentation, we are going to talk about the post-independence era. First of all, we will look at the problems that were to be faced by India post-independence. Only less than 6% Indians were literate. It was hopelessly poor with below average economic conditions. India had sharp social differences. Unemployment, rehabilitation of people were also to be considered. So, the question arises, what did India do? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru ji. He became the first Prime Minister of independent India on 15th August 1947. In 1935, the Reserve Bank of India came into existence, but it was in the year 1949 that the bank got nationalized. In the year 1949, the Reserve Bank of India got nationalized. Here we give a look at some firsts of India. August 18, 1951, first IIT in Kharagpur was established. 1951 to 1952, first general elections were held. October 16, 1952, first ever test match was played between India and Pakistan. 1959, first television was introduced, and October 26, first ever national emergency was declared in India. Indian economy from 1947 till date was based on the concept of planning. 5-year plans, education, industrialization, economy, agriculture, etc. A total of 12 5-year plans have been planned and executed till date. The most recent one, the 12th plan, 2012 to 2017.
Objectives of the 12th five-year plan. Increase green cover by 1 million hectare every year, create 50 million new work opportunities, remove gender and social gap, provide electricity, and to reduce malnutrition among children aged 0 to 3 years. These were the objectives of the last 12th five-year plan. Industrial development in India. This is the next phase we are going to talk about. Industrial development. The third five-year plan had the main focus on industrialization. It was the third plan that had the main focus on industrial development in India. This graph shows the first phase of industrial development. At the end of third plan, we have the maximum industrial growth rate as we can observe from the graph. Industrial growth rate in the fourth and fifth five-year plan. We can observe that at the end of fifth five-year plan, industrial growth rate went in negative. It was minus 1.60. But India took up. After the seventh five-year plan, the industrial growth rate was a whopping 8.3. After the seventh five-year plan, a new industrial policy was undertaken by the Indian government. Some changes were made in the industrial policy for improvement. So what was the new industrial policy? Liberalization of industrial trade and policy, reduction in the domestic barriers, simplification of complex bureaucratic controls, and easy access to advanced technology. Next phase, Indian economy, agricultural reforms. Abolition of middlemen like landlords, land ceiling, and land possession. These were some of the many agricultural reforms that post-independence. What were the hindrances, the obstacles in the path of development? These hindrances still exist. We need to overcome them. Overpopulation, pollution, political factors, poor infrastructural facilities, and low literacy rate. These are some of the many problems that India has to face to be at the top of the world. Coming to the end of the presentation, we have the promise of the future. What our Indian economy promises. At a fast pace of reforms, we continue to contribute to the ever-evolving Indian economy. India at 75. India at 75 is the new milestone our country will achieve. In 2022, our country will celebrate 75 years of independence. India celebrates yet another glorious year as an independent nation. With this, I would like to end my presentation. Thanks a lot for your coordination and attention.
Thank you, B2. Now I invite B3 for their presentation.
Is my presentation visible, ma'am?
Yes, you
Okay.
may continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. This is B3, and I'm going to present you the topic Evolution of Indian Economy in the Post-Independence Era. First of all, हम ये बात करेंगे कि इकोनॉमी क्या होती है. इकोनॉमी एक सेट ऑफ एक्टिविटीज है जो हेल्प करती है रिसोर्सेस एलोकेट करने में फॉर प्रोडक्शन एंड कंजम्पशन। और ये रिसोर्सेस एलोकेट इसलिए किए जाते हैं ताकि हम नीड्स को फुलफिल कर सके उन पीपल की जो हमारे में रहते हैं। और इन एक्टिविटीज की बेस में हमारा इंडिया डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी है विच इज एन अपग्रेडेड वर्जन ऑफ अंडर डेवलप्ड इकोनॉमी। अगर टाइप्स ऑफ इकोनॉमी की बात करें तो दीज आर द 3 टाइप्स। कैपिटलिस्ट इकोनॉमी, जहां पे प्राइवेट सेक्टर गवर्न करता है these the activities. Socialist economy, where the government governs these activities. And our Indian economy, which is the mixed economy, where government and private sector both work together towards conducting of these activities. अगर हम अपने टॉपिक की बात करें अब एवोल्यूशन ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी, तो ये बार ग्राफ आपको दिखाता है इंडिया की ग्रोथ फ्रॉम द ईयर 1952 टू 2019 इन द फॉर्म ऑफ जीडीपी एंड इन्फ्लेशन। बहुत सारी फ्लक्चुएशंस आपको देखने को मिलेंगी। ये फ्लक्चुएशन, ये डेवलपमेंट, ये बहुत सारे इवेंट्स और मेजर्स और पॉलिसी जो कि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने अडॉप्ट किए थे, जिसकी वजह से हमने ये ग्रोथ अचीव की है, जो जिसकी वजह से आज हमारी इकोनॉमी 1,50,000 बिलियन डॉलर इकोनॉमी बनी है। उसके बहुत सारे रीजंस हैं जो कि हम आने वाली स्लाइड्स में डिस्कस करेंगे। इंडिया के लिए उसकी इंडिपेंडेंस ही उसका सबसे बड़ा एवोल्यूशन। 1950 में पहला उसने कदम जो प्लानिंग कमीशन बना के किया था। प्लानिंग कमीशन का पर्पस था कि इंडिया को एक 5 ईयर प्लान दे सके और एक विजन डॉक्यूमेंट दे सके 20 ईयर का, जो कि गाइड करेगा इंडिया को डेवलपमेंट की। क्योंकि एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर ही इंडिया का मेजर कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटर था जीडीपी की ओर, तो फर्स्ट प्लान में 1951 में एग्रीकल्चर को ही फोकस किया गया और हैरर-टोमर मॉडल को अडॉप्ट किया गया, जो इस था कि जितनी ज्यादा सेविंग्स होंगी उतनी ज्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट होगी, जिसकी वजह से इकोनॉमी ग्रो करेगी। लेकिन इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को ग्रो करने के लिए इंडस्ट्रीज की जरूरत थी, जिसमें इंडिया बहुत पीछे था। और सेकंड 5 ईयर प्लान में रिप्लेस किया गया महालानो बेस्ड मॉडल फॉर हैरर-टोमर मॉडल। इसमें इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन को लाया गया। इसमें हैवी इंडस्ट्रीज और कैपिटल गुड्स को, टेक्नोलॉजी को इतना फोकस किया गया था, और इसकी वजह से इन इंडस्ट्रीज को कंट्रोल करने के लिए एक बैड कंट्रीब्यूशन है सेकंड ईयर प्लान का, लाइसेंस राज सिस्टम, जिसकी वजह से 3 सिस्टम बनाएंगे। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द बेसिक पीएसयू सेक्टर्स, सेकंड में मिक्स्ड जहाँ पे स्टेट और प्राइवेट ओन्ड आती थी, और लास्ट में प्राइवेट सेक्टर। इसी इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन को बढ़ाने के लिए पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी, जो उस समय हमारे पीएम थे, उन्होंने हमें मॉडर्न टेम्पल्स दिए थे। उनका स्टेटमेंट था कि हमें ट्रेडिशनल टेम्पल्स में इन्वेस्ट करने की बजाय इन सेक्टर्स में इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, ताकि हम अपनी इकोनॉमी को ग्रो कर सकें। लेकिन हमारा मेजर कंट्रीब्यूटरी एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर था, और इंडस्ट्री रेवोल्यूशन सेकंड ईयर प्लान में आने की वजह से उसके ऊपर फोकस बिल्कुल हट गया था, जिससे हमारी फूड ग्रेन्स डिप्लीट हुए और हमें 90% हमारा फूड ग्रेन जो है बाहर से इंपोर्ट कराना पड़ा। इस इंपोर्ट की वजह से हमारा जो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व था वो सारे डिप्लीट होने शुरू हो गए। एंड आफ्टर द सडन डिमाइस ऑफ जवाहरलाल नेहरू, लाल बहादुर शास्त्री recreated the development policy of India by giving invitation to the foreign sector to invest in Indian economy. प्राइवेट सेक्टर को बढ़ावा दिया गया, एग्रीकल्चर को प्रमोट किया गया, जिसकी वजह से व्हाइट रेवोल्यूशन आया, डेयरी प्रोडक्ट्स प्रमोट हुए, और ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन 1960 में आया था। इन एग्रीकल्चर के मेथड्स को प्रमोट कर उसको रिप्लेस किया एवरग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन से, ताकि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट हो सके, हम जो है सस्टेनेबली ग्रो कर सके आगे अपने फ्यूचर की ओर। लेकिन इसके बाद हैरर-टोमर मॉडल की पॉलिसी को फिर से अडॉप्ट किया गया, और बैंकिंग सेक्टर को किया गया इंडिया में, जहां पे रूरल सेक्टर में सेविंग हैबिट्स को प्रमोट किया गया। लेकिन क्योंकि इंडिया की हालत उस समय बहुत बुरी थी, और हम ज्यादा एक्सपोर्ट को बढ़ाने के लिए इस टाइम में रुपी की वैल्यू 56% से डिवैल्यू की थी, जिसकी वजह से पोजीशन बहुत ज्यादा वर्सन हो गई थी। एंड इन द एरा ऑफ जनता पार्टी, फर्स्ट डीमोनेटाइजेशन अकर हुआ ऑफ 1000, 5000 एंड 10,000 नोट्स। ये इतना बड़ा मेजर पार्ट था हमारी इंडियन इकोनॉमी का कि इसके बैन होने की वजह से हमारी इकोनॉमी ज्यादा डिसमेंटल हो गई थी, इतनी ज्यादा डिस्टर्ब हो गई थी कि कोका कोला जैसी इंडस्ट्री भारत को छोड़कर जा चुकी थी। और इसको कवर अप करने के लिए लाइसेंस राज को इन द रिटर्न ऑफ इंदिरा गांधी गवर्नमेंट हटाया गया, इंपोर्ट ड्यूटीज कम की गई और प्राइस कंट्रोल कैप सिस्टम इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया, जिसमें ये था कि मिनिमम और मैक्सिमम प्राइस ही बताए गए थे। एंड इसके बाद क्योंकि इसका प्रमोशन स्टार्ट हुआ और इसकी वजह से आईटी रेवोल्यूशन आया इन द ईयर 1980 और आईटी सेक्टर को बढ़ावा दिया गया, डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस कम की गई ताकि लोगों के पास मनी हो ताकि वो सेव कर सके, जिसकी वजह से इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़े। एंड द ईयर 1991 की जिसमें गोल्डन रिफॉर्म्स किए गए, जिसने हमारी इकोनॉमी को इतना बदल के रख दिया था कि आज तक उसकी वजह से हमने ग्रो कर रहे हैं। और वो उस टाइम पॉलिसी ना होती, दैट इज ऑफ लिबरलाइजेशन, प्राइवेटाइजेशन एंड ग्लोबलाइजेशन। प्राइवेट सेक्टर को प्रमोट किया गया, गवर्नमेंट की रेगुलेशन कंट्रोल को रिप्लेस किया रेगुलेशंस ने, एंड प्राइवेट सेक्टर को पीएसयू से रिप्लेस किया गया। पर इसकी वजह से जो मार्केट है वो अनचेंज हो गई थी और इंडिया इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ स्कैम से। पहला स्कैम जो कि हर्षद मेहता के द्वारा किया गया था, जिसने गवर्नमेंट फंड्स किया था टू परचेज हिज फंड्स, और इसकी वजह से ही सेबी का जो है इनकॉर्पोरेट जो है मजबूत जो उसको रेगुलेशंस दिए गए, उसको पार दिए के लिए। और हमारा जो गोल्डन पीरियड है, डेकेड ऑफ सेंचुरी, जिसमें इतना ज्यादा ग्रो किया कि टाटा जैसी कंपनी ने $13 मिलियन में 2007 में एक यूके बेस्ड कंपनी को एक्वायर किया। तो उसके चलते आदित्य बिरला ग्रुप ने भी एक 2007 में एक्वायर किया, और ऐसे ही हमारी जो है इंडिया की इकोनॉमी ग्रो होनी शुरू हो गई, जिसकी वजह से इन पीरियड अवर इकोनॉमी वाज फ्रॉम 2,939 बिलियन टू 56,313 बिलियन डॉलर की इकोनॉमी बन गई उस टाइम पे हमारी। और इस रिफॉर्म्स के बाद हमारे इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ मोदी गवर्नमेंट का, जिसने आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस से चली आ रही प्लानिंग कमीशन को नीति आयोग से रिप्लेस किया। इसको एक थिंकिंग टैंक बनाया गया कि जो कि लॉन्ग टर्म और मीडियम टर्म स्ट्रेटजीज बनाएगी स्टेट के साथ मिलकर, और एक बहुत बड़ा जो है क्या कह सकते हैं कि इवेंट आया जिसने शेकन कर दिया इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को, दैट इज बैन ऑफ 8 नवंबर 2016, बैन ऑफ 500 and 1000 रुपीज नोट्स। ये इसलिए किया गया था ताकि हमारे ब्लैक मनी को ग्रिप को ब्रेक किया जा सके, लेकिन इसकी क्योंकि 85% इकोनॉमी इन्हीं नोट्स पे बेस्ड थी, जिसकी वजह से बहुत ही ज्यादा इन्फ्लेशन हुई और जो है इंडिया की जीडीपी भी गिरी थी। लेकिन इसने बहुत सारे पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट्स भी लाए, और इसी के साथ ही अगले साल ही ब्लैंकेट टैक्स जो कि जीएसटी आया, जिसने प्राइवेट सेक्टर को इतना इजी बना दिया था अपने जो है अपने ऑपरेशंस को कंडक्ट करना, यंग एंटरप्रेन्योर्स डिजिटल जो वर्ल्ड को कम्युनिकेट करने लगे, क्योंकि जो है 2016 में जो बैन लगा था तो लोग डिजिटल पेमेंट्स को ज्यादा बढ़ावा देने लगे थे। तो उसी की वजह से जो यंग एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं उन्होंने डिजिटल पेमेंट प्लेटफॉर्म्स को इनकरेज किया, जिसकी वजह से हम आज पेटीएम, यूपीआई पेमेंट्स, जीपे, ऐसी सारी जो फैसिलिटीज हैं वो यूज कर पा रहे हैं। एंड ये इन सभी सेक्टर्स ने एक न्यू इकोसिस्टम, डिजिटल सिस्टम एक क्रिएट कर दिया। एंड दीज आर द स्टैटिस्टिक्स ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी कि कैसे उन्होंने ग्रो किया फ्रॉम इन्फ्लेशन। जैसे हम देख सकते हैं कि चाहे इन्फ्लेशन बढ़ी, क्योंकि 2010 में आप देख पा रहे हैं कि 10.52% इन्फ्लेशन थी बिकॉज ऑफ क्योंकि क्राइसिस हुए थे 2008 जो कि इंटरनेशनल क्राइसिस थे। 1991 का क्राइसिस हमारे इंटरनल रीजंस थे, 2009 का इंटरनेशनल इम्पैक्ट की वजह से हुआ। लेकिन जो ये हमारा पैंडेमिक और ये बैन की वजह से ये जो इन्फ्लेशन आया है, ये दोनों का मिलकर है, एक कोविड का इंटरनेशनल और हमारे इंटरनल जो स्टेप्स उठाए गए गवर्नमेंट के द्वारा, उन्होंने मिलकर ये इन्फ्लेशन क्रिएट किया, जिसकी वजह से अभी हम माइनस में चल रहे हैं जीडीपी की ग्रोथ में। बट इंडिया इज रिकवरिंग। जैसे यू ऑल नो दैट ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म सच एज Zoom, WebEx, all these sectors have just developed to their best. Online education have developed to their best because of this in this pandemic also. So these sectors have developed a lot, and now the Indian economy is up to $150,000 billion economy in the form of US dollars, and these has grown at to their max. Thank you so much.
Going to invite our first participant with code B4. You may share your screen.
Hello, good morning to all.
Good morning.
May I share my screen?
Yes, before you may share.
Is it visible?
Yes.
Can I start?
Yes, you can start.
So a very good morning to one and all present over here. Today, I'm from Group B and my tag is B4. I'm here to present my PowerPoint presentation on the topic Evaluation of Indian Economy in Post-Independence Era. I'm going to give a critical appraisal over this topic. The next slide is about index. Index shows that the number of points that I'm going to present in my presentation. So I'll start with the introduction part. As we all know that the achievement we celebrate today is an opening of opportunities to the great triumph and achievement that await us. We know that the country that task ahead included the ending of poverty and ignorance of disease and inequalities of opportunities. We know that these were the basic foundations on which India embarked upon its path of development since gaining independence in 1947. And the purpose of this talk is to analyze how much has India really achieved in last 55 years in fulfilling the aspiration on which it was founded. Now, I'll start my topic with the first subtopic, that is types of economic system. As we all know, there are mainly three types of economic system: capitalist economy, socialist economy, and mixed economy. Capitalist economy is mainly basically that economy where all the goods and services are owned by the private enterprises and decisions are taken by the private forces. Whereas socialist economy is that economy where all goods and services are owned and controlled by the government. And mixed economy, on the other hand, is the mixture of capitalist economy as well as socialist economy, where some goods and services are controlled and owned by the private enterprises and some goods and services are owned and controlled by the government. And after freedom, mixed economy was adopted by the Indian economy in the view that India would be the socialist society with a strong public and private property and democracy. After adopting mixed economy, it was now necessary for the government to adopt some plans. For the development of Indian economy, it was necessary for the government to plan for the economy known as economic planning. And the Planning Commission fixed the planning period at 5 years, which begins the era of 5-year plan. If I talk about 5-year plan, the first question that comes to our mind is what were the goals of these 5-year plans? So these 5-year plans have been concerned with the removal of economic backwardness of the country and to make the India a developed economy. The goals were like the 5-year plans have also taken care to ensure that the weaker sections of the society should be benefited from the economic progress of the country. The first 5-year plan was launched from the period starting from 1st April 1951 and ending on 31st March 1956. It was all about of 5 years. Each 5-year plan listed the basic goals on India's development, which serve as the guiding principle of Indian economy. And if I talk about the basic goals of 5-year plan, the basic goals of 5-year plan were the equity between the rich, poor, and middle class, equity between the different people belonging to different caste, religion, and gender, self-reliant in their occupation, in their jobs, modernization in terms of industrialization and mainly in industrial sector. Modernization means giving a new look to our country, to our economy. And after achieving all these objectives, our economy also showed a lot of growth in terms of real GDP. So these were the goals that were achieved through different 5-year plans. And those different 5-year plans were like those different 5-year plans has been listed below. For example, first 5-year plan, the period of first 5-year plan was 1951 to 56, and the target set for that was 2.1, and the actual target that India achieved was 3.5. And from that target, agriculture sector
contribution was 2.9, industrial sector contribution was 5.9, and service sector contribution was 3.7. So, likewise, all the plans have contributed their own part in the growth of the economy. But if I talk about agriculture sector, the agriculture, we know that in India most of the people are engaged in agriculture sector, but the contribution of the agriculture in the GDP is very low. And we know that there was neither growth nor equity in agriculture sector during the colonial rule. Problems that agriculture sector faced at that time was like low productivity, disguised unemployment, high dependence on rainfall, subsistence farming, and outdated technology. Because of all these factors, it became necessary for the government to adopt some policies for the growth of agriculture. And for that, the measures undertaken to promote the growth in agriculture sector, we can classify them into two parts, that is land reform and green revolution. If I talk about land reform is preliminary, changing the ownership of the land holding, because previously in earlier time the land holdings were held by the landlords called zamindars, and it became necessary for the underdeveloped and developing countries like India to adopt this land reform so that the poor farmers should not suffer, because majority of population in India was dependent on agriculture. After adopting land reform, green revolution was adopted. It means that the large increase in production of food grain due to use of HYD seeds, and it was an advancement in the field of agriculture, because India experienced a great success mainly in two phases, that was in mid 60s to 70s and in mid 70s to 80s. After achieving a growth in agriculture sector, the second aim of the government was industrial development. And we know that at the time of independence, the variety of industries were very limited. The cotton, textile, and jute industry were the mostly developed in India. There were only two well-managed steel and iron firms, one in Jamshedpur and other in Kolkata. So there was a strong need to expand the industrial base with a number of industries. For this purpose, government of India adopted industrialization. And the benefit of that industrialization was like, industrialization lead to an increase in per capita income and provides goods to meet high demand. It provides increasing avenues for employment of new skilled and labored forces, because in that government has formed many policies for the unemployed people to give them employment, to give them jobs. And it also helps in earning foreign exchange, as income elasticity of demand for the industrial product is much higher than for agriculture product. So these were the benefits that India achieved through industrialization. So with this, I am completed with my presentation. I would like to conclude my topic by saying that the progress of Indian economy through different policies, different 5-year plans can be summarized into three sectors, that is agriculture sector, industrial sector, and trade sector. In agriculture sector, India became self-sufficient in food grain. Land reform resulted in abolition of zamindar. Green revolution also showed a lot of growth in agriculture sector. In industrial sector, the India became more diversified. India became more modernized, which gave a new look to our India, to our economy. In trade sector, our domestic producers were protected against foreign competition in order to gain self-reliance, because at that time the government of India impose some restrictions on India, so that the other countries should not enter into our country, so that our country should be self-reliant in their own occupation. So these were the areas where our India has showed a lot of growth. So with this, I am completed with my topic and my presentation. Thank you all for your cooperation.
Thank you, B4. Now the next participant is B6, B5. B5, you may share your screen.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to confirm if you all can see my screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. My internet connection is a little bit unstable, so I'm sorry if there are any problems. So we are all gathered up here to discuss and critically appraise the evolution of Indian economy in India since independence. My topic for today's presentation is the evolution of the agrarian economy in India since the British left. So before we start, before we look at the phases of agricultural development after independence, it is very important to have a look at how the state of agriculture was when the British left. The sector faced stagnancy and constant decline under the British, and partition took away a large portion of fertile land in terms of Sindh and Punjab, which went to Pakistan. So heavy dependence on rainfall was a major feature of the country. We were not well irrigated through canals or groundwater. There was subsistence farming. Most of the commercial farming was done by the British or organized by the British to exploit the farmers. Moreover, there was a wedge between the owners and tillers of the soil, which also worsened the crisis of the Indian agricultural economy. So I'm going to discuss the growth in agricultural sector after independence in 4 phases, as mentioned here. The first phase will be pre-Green Revolution period, then advent of Green Revolution, then impact of the reforms, and then we'll discuss the recent developments which have taken place after 2014. The first phase is the pre-Green Revolution period, which starts from 1947 and lasts up to mid-1960s. So there was tremendous agrarian reforms and institutional changes after independence in order to bring out the Indian economy of its colonial past. In order to address the problems of food shortages and the resultant price rise in the country, the agricultural sector was given the highest priority in India's first 5-year plan, which lasted from 1951 till 1956. So there was community development programs, decentralized planning, intensive development programs, and the likes of it. So an intensive price policy was adopted in order to encourage farmers to adopt the modern techniques of agricultural production in 1964. And the Agricultural Price Commission was set up as well in order to advise the government for fixation of support prices for agricultural crops. So despite all these measures and all these efforts by the government, the results were not so pleasing. India remained dependent upon the foreign countries for food to feed the rising population. However, 2 years of severe drought in 1965 and 1966 convinced the country that there was a dire need of a change, and this ushered in India's Green Revolution. So phase 2, the advent of Green Revolution, which started in the late 1960s and its impact lasted up to 1990s. The Green Revolution was kick-started from the year 1966, and the effects of the adoption of superior technology, high-yielding variety of seeds, and irrigation expansion and institutional reforms were found to manifest from 1968 to 1969 onwards, when its effects really started to show up in the country. It began with adopting superior yielding, disease-resistant variety of wheat. So we began with wheat and rice first, with better farming knowledge to improve productivity. So initially, the focus of the Green Revolution remained Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP. The reason behind it being their irrigation facilities. These areas were very well irrigated through canals and groundwater. So it was the perfect location in order to start a Green Revolution, because the high-yielding variety seeds needed more irrigation. So there was a visible reversal of growth in GDP. The GDP growth in agriculture and all of the economy rose in that period. The state of Punjab led the India's Green Revolution and earned the distinction of being the country's breadbasket. And we later see in this presentation how this breadbasket is now paying the price for being one. Here are some achievements of the Green Revolution. India's total food grain production soared, where a hectare of Indian farm was producing 0.8 tons of wheat. It was now producing 4.7 tons of wheat in 1975, which is about a 5 times increase. there is increasing annual growth rate, which we can see through this graph, not only in the agricultural sector, but also in the total GDP of the country. So such rapid growth in farm productivity enabled India to achieve self-sustainability, self-reliance in terms of food grains, as the previous speaker also mentioned. So this is a line graph wherein we can see that the production of rice and wheat increased substantially and continuously till 1990 and 1991, with the blue line showing the pulses remaining low because the focus was not on pulses, it was on the cereals when the Green Revolution is concerned. So now there is phase 3 of the impact of 1991 reforms, or popularly known as the LPG reforms in India. India entered the process of globalization by 1991 when there was a severe economic crisis in the country. And the IMF agreed to give a bailout package to India only if it agreed to structural and institutional economic changes and reforms in the country. These reforms are broadly classified into liberalization, privatization, and globalization. It had an unprecedented and created an unprecedented demand in all the sectors, including agriculture. So all this forced the leadership of the country, or the government of the country, to form policies so that agriculture could also benefit from the trade liberalization. And so they abided by it, and several steps have been taken to keep pace with the growing competition created by trade liberalization. So it was not all pleasant or hunky-dory with globalization. There were some positive impacts and some negative consequences of globalization as well. We can see that there was an increase in imports, increase in availability of modern technologies, pesticides, and all sorts of stuff which is needed for modern agriculture and machinery as well. So it created new areas of employment, and growth of agro imports is also a major contribution of globalization. India's share in trade in exports rose to a significant amount. But I feel that there are more negative consequences of globalization. The farmers are left with a vicious debt trap which they cannot get out of. Labor migrated to other sectors because agriculture was largely neglected in the later half of the reforms. The income of the farmers reduced because they could not compete with the international market. So this caused the slowdown in the early years of 2000s, and then we did see a subsequent recovery, but the downfall was very prominent. Agriculture production fell by 12.6% in 2003, which is one of the sharpest drops in independent India's history. And more so, farmer suicides were 12% of the total suicides in the country in 2000, which is also the highest ever in independent India's history. These figures are really depressing. However, we did see a recovery of when India grew at about 3% in the later half of this decade. Now we come to phase 4, which is the recent developments, and we will take track of the developments which have taken place after 2014 when the BJP-led government came to place. 2014 saw a paradigm shift in the leadership of the country. The Modi government aims at doubling the farmers' income by 2022, which is indeed a very ambitious target. Due to significant decrease in rainfall, the agriculture growth rate in 2014-15 was a negative 0.2%, which was not a very pleasant way or pleasant position for the BJP to start with. So they introduced a number of schemes and reforms during their first tenure, which include Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, which was launched in 2015, the ENAM, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which provided insurance to the crops, and the Pradhan Mantri Samman Nidhi Yojana was recently launched in 2019 when the government was re-elected with a vast majority. Present-day problems in the sector. So, despite all these reforms, all these steps and measures taken by the government, it is no hidden truth that the farmer of India is in distress. there have been disastrous effects of Green Revolution, especially in the state of Punjab, which led the Green Revolution. In Punjab, we have seen an irreparable damage done to the irrigation, the groundwater of the state, and even in Haryana, where it has reached to a level where there is a low availability of even drinking water. And there is, of course, the side effects of chemical fertilizers and the chemical pesticides that we have used. We've polluted our soils, we polluted our waters, and it is beyond repair. And then there is an increasingly reducing size of land holdings. The land holding size has reduced to almost in half as compared to 1970s. Now, the average size of land holding of a farmer is about 1.5 hectare in the country. And as we can see in this graph, that any size of land holding less than 1 hectare proves to be a loss for the farmer because he cannot cover up his consumption expenditure with the income he has earned. And this is a grave situation which we must take into cognizance. Of course, there is rising cost and falling profits because the cost of pesticides and high yielding variety of seeds is coming up and it's costing the farmer a lot than what he's earning. Then the government policies, including demonetization and then the hasty implementation of GST, has also impacted the farmer in a very bad way. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that agricultural growth has been quite volatile over the years. It has seen its ups and downs, but we can certainly say that there has been a substantial increase in production of food grains, even in per capita terms. When India's population has tripled since 1950s, its food grain production has more than quadrupled, which means we have more food grains available per capita for every individual citizen. The Green Revolution was indeed a game changer for the country, which led the path of self-sufficiency in food grains and gave the country confidence that it can feed its own citizens without being reliant on another country. So, of course, the agriculture has come a long way since the British, or how the British left us, but there is no denial to the fact as well that we are in a dire situation and there is a need of reforms, of structural reforms, of overhaul of the total economy. And I would suggest, and I would definitely advocate for a sustainable growth wherein we take care of our irrigation, our resources, so that we can also sustain the future generations. Thanks a lot for being such a patient audience.
Thank you, B5. Now I am going to invite B6.
Mike, you can start my timing.
Okay.
As father of economics, Adam Smith has said, a nation is not made wealthy by the childish accumulation of shiny metals, but it is enriched by the economic prosperity of its people. Good morning, everyone. I am participant Basics going to represent the PowerPoint presentation on the topic Evolution of the Indian Economy in the Post-Independence Era, a critical appraisal. And the main topic, my chosen part to be presented in front of you all, is the growth of service sector after the independence. In this PowerPoint presentation, we will discuss economy of India, its different sector, evaluate the service sector as the engine of growth, its component, government incentives to it, critical appraisal, and at last we will able to analyze the vitality of the service sector for the Indian economy. Now let us have some brief introduction of economy of India. In August 2021, India will complete 75 years as an independent nation. It is the world's sixth largest economy by nominal GDP and third largest by purchasing power parity. The economy of India is characterized as a middle income developing market economy, and at last, India is likely to be third largest economy with a GDP size of $15 trillion by 2030. As we all know, on the basis of economic activities, Indian economy is divided into three major sectors. The very first is primary sector, includes agriculture, fisheries, forestry, etc. The second one is secondary sector, which includes finished goods, manufacturing industry. And the third is service sector, which includes the production of services instead of products. It includes financial services industry, internet technology, and the healthcare entertainment industry. This sector jobs also called as white collar jobs. Let us see the data. This data is taken from the Economic Survey 2012-13. As you can see in the given table, that the GDP share of agriculture fell from 53.1% to 16.1 during 1950 to 2012. During the same period, the contribution of the manufacturing sector moved up from 16.1 to 25.7, whereas the production of service sector shoot up from 30.3 to 58.2%, excluding construction during the same period, that is 1950 to 2012. This chart first shows the graphical representation of the previous data. From the beginning, the agriculture contribution to the Indian economy is on decreasing trend, shown by the green line, and whereas the service sector contribution is on increasing trend, shown by the orange colored line. And this data is taken from the same Economic Survey Report 2010 and 11. From the previous data, empirical proofs, we can evaluate that the services in India is one of the major contributor to national income. After the introduction of 1991 policy, Indian economy went the structural transformation to the agriculture-led growth to services-led growth. And we can say that service sector is the engine of growth for our economy, which marching toward trends of service sector since independence. I'm audible?
Yes, bache, continue.
Okay, ma'am. The table 2 is taken from the Economic Survey Report 2011-12, where it shows the trend of service sector, particularly from since independence, and it is clearly visible from the statistical data that India's high growth rate in the post-independence era was mostly achieved by and maintained by the spectacular and consistent performance of the service sector. Again, this chart shows the chart given on the screen depicting the trend line, which indicate that service sector share in the GDP is continuously increasing from 1950 to 2011-12, and this chart is taken from the Economic Survey Report of 11 and 12. Let us see the composition of service sector. In the national income accounting in India, service sector includes trade, hotel, and restaurant, the very first. The second one is transport, storage, and communication, which includes IT industry also. The third one is financing, insurance, real estate, and business services. And the fourth one is community, social, and personal services, in which the public administration and defense, health, and education is also included. Let us see the data. Table 3 is taken from the Central Statistics Office, which show the different service categories in GDP at factor cost. As you can see in the above, the contribution of trade, hotels, and restaurants in 2012 and 13 is 25.1. The second component, transport, storage, and communication in 2011-12 is 7.1. Financing, insurance, and business services in 2012-13 is 17.2, and In the same year, the contribution of the community, social, and personal services is 14.3. And at the end, you can see in the year 2012 and 13, the contribution of total service sectors, including construction, is 64.8. The very recent data, this is given by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Jan 2020-21. The service sector accounts for 54.77% of total India's gross value added of 183.43 lakh crore in Indian rupee, which is much higher than industrial and the agriculture sector. Let's have a critical appraisal. After the 75 years of independence, our Indian economy is still facing major bottlenecks. The very first is excessive dependence and expenditure on agriculture sector, pressure of population, unemployment, realistic economic structure, unequal distribution of income and wealth, outdated social institutions. Seventh is about service sector criticism is that service sector is a people-centric and more susceptible to crisis. In the year 2020, we were a particular year stained by the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know. The first half of financial year 2020-21, we saw service sector contraction by almost 16%, and the decline was led by the contraction of all subsectors, particularly. This data is taken from Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, in which it said that this sector is very much susceptible to crisis. The impact of COVID-19 on service sector was much higher. Third is gap between employment rate and the share in the GDP. The given graph share on the screen depict the GDP and the employment rate, in which service sector of India has still facing some challenges as compared to the other countries, as you can see, especially in the terms of gap between employment rate and its share in GDP. You can see the data of India where there is a difference between the employment rate and in the GDP. Whereas in the other countries, there is a low gap, or we can say there is a negligible gap in the countries like United Kingdom and USA, where the gap between both of them is very low. So this chart is also taken from the Economic Survey 2016 and 17. Government initiatives to the service sector. The government of India recognizes the importance of promoting growth in service sector and provides several incentives. The very first is the recent one, the Union Budget 21-22. Government allocated 7,000 crore to boost digital connectivity. Second one is FDI limit increased from 49 to 74%. Different skill development courses has been launched, and Government of India signed a memorandum of understanding with United Kingdom on communication technology. Analysis. The service sector has in recent decades has been performing much better than the agriculture and industry in India. With the development of economy, the contribution of service sector in national income has been growing progressively and relatively faster than primary and secondary sector. Conclusion is this: India's service sector is like an uncharted sea with a plenty of opportunities and new challenges. The era of economic liberalization has assured rapid change in service industry. From the previous statistical data, we can conclude that without tertiary sector or without service sector, Indian economy would not has acquired would not have been acquired a strong and dominating place on the world platform. Thank you and Satyam Jai.
So I'm going to invite the first participant with code B7. B7, you may share your screen.
Is my screen is visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Yes. Please start my time.
Okay.
I am from Group B, Tag B7. My topic is Evolution of Indian Economy in Post-Independence Era. Long year ago, we made a trust with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall rhythm our pledge. The achievement we celebrate today is but a step, an opening of opportunity to great triumph and achievement awaits us. India became an independent nation on August 15, on August 15, 1947. Prior to that, Indian in subcontinent was under the British rule for nearly 2 centuries with a very long period to sufficiently influence every aspect of our country. During the time of Britishers, our economy was backward and there is a high need for this economic development. For betterment of economy, these changes are very necessary, which I am going to tell you about. By these changes, our economy will grow abundantly. Now, here are the different three sectors which I discuss here, and see, as you seen here, that first one is the primary sector, and second one is the secondary sector, and third one is the tertiary sector. Due to the primary sector, there is an increase in the agriculture production, and due to which there is a increase in wages, income, and employment. Due to the secondary sector, there is increase in goods. Due to the tertiary sector, there is increase in services. Firstly, I am discussing the primary sector. When we produce the goods by exploiting natural resources, it is an activity of primary sector. Under this sector, agriculture sector plays a major role in Indian economy in post-independence era. Since independence, Indian economy experienced a high growth rate in agriculture, expansion of farming lands, and introduction of high-yielding variety of crops, with the major factor contributing the growth in agriculture production. Agriculture sector continues to be an important sector in an Indian economy, generates a livelihood for the more than half of the population. Now, next one is the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution also took place due to which variety of food increased, and the Green Revolution started in the 1965 with the introduction of the HIV seeds in Indian agriculture, great increase in the production of the food grains. Now, second one is the secondary sector. Secondary sector plays a very important role in our economy. Secondary sector covers activities in which the natural products are changed into other forms through by through ways of manufacturing that we associate with industrial activity. Industrial sector Industrial sector is the base for the other sectors. If there would be no industrial sector, there would be no other sector. If, for example, if there would be no machines, there would be no production. Hence, there will be no goods. As you've seen here, the timeline of the industrial policy reforms, there are the many different reforms after independence. Till now, there are also many reforms further made which our economy has enhanced the resources. Now, here you all seen that how the growth rate affects under the plans. From first to third year plan, there is an increase in from fourth to 5 year plan, it is decreasing. And as you see here, growth rate is high in the seventh plan. Then after independence, the Indian road network has become one of the largest in the world. Also, the network of state highways grows abundantly. Infrastructure is highly developed in an Indian economy after independence. Then this is the status of the health infrastructure after independence. A decrease in death rates is considered one of the major achievements means that from India's way in this sector. After a long drawn struggle, India has finally declared a polio free country since 2014. Education sector. The number of the schools witnessed a dramatic increase during the post-independence era. The government launched the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan in 2001 to ensure education for children. Government has started higher institutions for students. When you educate one person, you can change a life. When you educate many, you can change the world. In recent years, due to COVID, we all face from online education, but online education is also a good platform, is also a good source to continue our education. And there is a many education sectors like in IITs and NITs and medical education, agriculture education, and the most of the important education, which is the expansion of general education, the institutions and schools and colleges which was developed under after independence. And this is the growth of the growth rate of the education sector. Here the red line shows the number of universities and the blue line shows the number of colleges. And as the time is passing, there is an increase in number of universities and colleges. Least but not the last, I introduce the tertiary sector. In this sector, service sector plays an important role since independence. Service sector is the major sector in the tertiary sector. Under this sector, banking, insurance, and transportation occur. After independence, India has been constantly experiencing an adverse balance of trade and change in the imports and the exports. There is a change in the balance of trade and there is a change in the direction of trade, and in the composition of trade there is a changes in the composition of import and the export. And how after independence transportation improved as there was introduction of the railways and roads. Railways are introduced and roads are constructed very beneficially, which our economy abundantly increase. And this is the new models of the trains like bullet trains are introduced in India for increasing Indian economy. Carry and transfer of goods from one place to another were also easier. Water and sea is a major aspect which I cover in this slide, that loading of the carriage from one country to the another was an easy task due to ship. Then banking sector is plays an important role in the government of India. Nationalized the Reserve Bank of India. Government of India nationalized the Reserve Bank of India on January 1, and 14 commercial banks were nationalized, and then 6 more banks were nationalized in April 1980. Here are the various sectors of the banking that is I described here in the flow chart diagram. That Reserve Bank of the India is the first bank which nationalized by the government, and there in under Reserve Bank of India there is a commercial banks and the cooperative banks and the foreign banks and the regional rural banks. Lastly, I show you that how growth rate affects in our economy. We all know that after independence, growth rate is increasing, but now due to pandemic and a grinding lockdown caused massive disruptions to economic activity. But service sector is the largest sector contributed to the growth rate of the India. Then thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, B7. Now the next participant is B8.
Good afternoon, Dee. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. You may share your screen.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Good afternoon, everyone. My tag is B8, and topic of presentation is evolution of Indian economy in post-independence era. So let us start. India is the seventh largest country by area, second most populous country, and has the biggest democracy in the world. India is a total power weapons state. India has second largest army in the world and fifth biggest defense budget. But all of these, some problems arises: poverty, starvation, corruption, illiteracy, public health care. After seeing this problem, the question arises is that whether this problem decreased or increased. To answer this question, let us look on my PPT. In this, I am going to tell you about the past India in comparison to new India. In comparison to new India, that how much India has developed in how much India has developed from 1947 to 2021. Indian economy is a developing mixed economy. Where most of people get confused after hearing mixed economy. In simple way, I can explain that. It includes three types of economic system. First, capitalist, which include private sectors. Second, socialist, which include government sector. Mixed, which include both private and government sectors. Now I can tell you about the past of Indian economy. Once upon a time, India is known as a Sonic India. But after the arrivals of Mughals and Britishers, they ruled our country and stole our precious things, and with them, due to which nothing left in India. Due to which nothing left in India. Due to then, on 15 August 1947, India declared as a liberal country. After independence, agriculture sector is a main occupation for India, and it contributes most to the India from 1947 to 2021. Indian agriculture sector is the backbone of India, as half of population depend upon agriculture sector. As you can see in this chart, from 1950 to 2010, agriculture sector contribute more than 50% for the growth of Indian sector. Due to this, export of food items is possible, and export of food item increases and foreign trade took place. With the passage of time, Western countries took industrialization and become developed. After seeing this, India also accept industrialization and being developed country. In past years, only there is agriculture sector, but after the industrial growth, India is also producing products and export these products to the other countries. But the main growth of India is because of service sector, which includes fields like BPO and IT. After the growth of service sector, not only the Indian economy got developed, but their businesses also developed. Through their developing businesses, India represent themselves globally and they separate their business worldwide. After independence, India faces crisis two times. First in 1991 because of internal reasons, and in 2008 because of global recession. In 1991, India faces crisis because of famine reason, due to which the trade of Indian economy got shaped and their balance sheet and their fiscal deficit got increased. At the end of 1990. Physical reform left with only 3 weeks of payments, which leads to the crisis in 1991. 2008 crisis is due to financial reasons, but this is a wake-up call for India. But other countries suffer from this crisis. According to me, now crisis occurs in 2020 because of widespread of coronavirus. This is the main propaganda in that days. Now you can see the chart in 2008, software export and services export of India. From our Indian economy boost up from two reforms, economic reform and liberalization. After this, everyone is waiting for the 2014 general election, and they think that their good time comes. After from 2014 to 18, India is the world's fastest growing economy. But in 2019, their growth becoming slowdown regularly. From 6th quartile, their GDP growth decreased, but in 7th quartile, GDP growth increased from 4.5% to 4.7%. Now I can tell you about the present of India. In 2002, Indian economy of India is 500 billion. In 2007, Indian economy of India is 1 trillion. In 2015, Indian economy of India is 2 trillion. But nowadays, Indian economy is 5th largest economy in the world. Nominal GDP of India is 3.2 trillion, and the growth rate of India in 2019 to 20 is 5%, with decrease to 1.9% in 2021. Now the GDP per capita income of India is 927 in 2020, and other GDP sector and in other sector GDP is in agriculture sector it is 15.4%. In agriculture it is 23%. In service sector it is 61%. Poverty rate in India in 2005 to 6 it is 55%. In 2015 to 16 it is 28%. According to Finance and Multinational Index report, poverty to 71 million people is out of poverty, but due to COVID impact, 100 million Indians would fall below poverty line in 2021. Now I can tell you about the employment rate of India. Employment rate of India is 6.1, in which 22.5% is the youth. According to CMI, full form of CMI is the Centre for Entering. Now there is disturbance. According to CMIE, unemployment rate in 2020 is 27.1%. Due to unemployment, poverty increases. After seeing this, we can see that what action should government take to deal with this situation. The ease of doing business rank is 63 in 2020. Export and import in 2019-20 is export is 314 billion and import is 467 billion. Trade deficit in India in 2019 is minus 184, with decrease to minus 152.88 in 2020, which is good for Indian economy. Now you can see the inflation rate that in Feb 2020 it is 6.58%, and at the end of 2020 it is 3.3. Now you can see in the chart that from 2014 the inflation rate goes up, which is not good for Indian economy, but in 2020 it gets slowed down, which is now good for Indian economy. Some people talk about that inflation rate is dependent upon seasonal food, but this is not true. Inflation rate is not dependent upon seasonal food, because if seasonal food production is high, price is low, or if seasonal production food is low, then price is high. Through this, we can say that our country has recovered a lot from 1947 to 2021, and we can see that in the upcoming years, we contribute to our country. We will be a developed country. Thank you so much.
Yes, C2, you start your presentation better.
Good morning, everyone. So this is my tag number C2, and now here I'm going to present my topic, Evolution of Indian Economy in Post-Independence Era. As India commemorates 74 glorious years as an independent nation, so let's look back at some of the significant milestones that were witnessed by our economy over the years. So firstly, I would like to discuss the scenario that was before independence, where our country was a very independent and a rich economy before the British rule, but towards the end, it got completely exhausted. It was due to the severe exploitation of our resources, our manpower, wealth by the Britishers, and due to these atrocities, the British rule can be considered as a black face for India. It led our economy towards a complete state of backwardness. Long years ago, we made tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge. The achievement we celebrate today is but a step, an opening of opportunity to the great triumph and achievement that awaits us. With these words of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, India on 15th August 1947 got independence and broke the shackles of the severe exploitation made by the Britishers. India's independence is itself a turning point in creation of its history. Although the economy that we inherited from the Britishers at that point of time was on the complete state of backwardness, it was in a very poor economic state. So there was a complete state where our country has to revive back from this condition. And now some of the major turning points which helped India to evolve over these years and grow and move ahead. So one by one, I would like to discuss these turning points that had a major impact on the evolution of our economy. The basic foundation of Indian economy began when we set up the Planning Commission, because the condition of our economy prior to that was in the hands of Britishers. So now there was a severe need to adopt a formal model of planning so that proper policies can be formulated, planning can be done, resources can be allocated in an efficient manner, their implementation, their evaluation can be monitored easily. And for this, Planning Commission was set up in 1950s that set up the 5-year planning that focused mainly on economic and social growth programs. And it was indeed a success which helped the economy to revive. And now Planning Commission has been replaced by Niti Aayog under the Cabinet Commission of Modi government. And now from 5-year planning, 3-year plans are in action. So now let's discuss the next reform, that was industrialization. India's economy witnessed completely a major structural change when it moved towards industrialization in 1950. Government adopted this policy because industrial sector of the economy was in very weak state. The ultimate focus was to promote the capital goods industry, strengthening the infrastructure of the industrial sector, and to develop a backbone that would take economy as a whole. Like iron and steel industry is considered as a backbone of our economy. Other industries such as chemical, locomotive, power, machines and tools, these were the basic industries that has to be developed so that we can move further ahead for the development process. Next was Green Revolution. As we all know that our Indian economy is considered as an agrarian economy, where about 70% of Indian population is involved in this sector. But despite that, it is in complete state of backwardness. But when Green Revolution came on, the game was completely changed in 1960s, and it has completely influenced the way of life, how the agriculture was done in our country. And facts can clearly show that this was indeed a successful policy in evolving the structure of agricultural sector in our country, where the net production of food grains in India increased from around 48 million tons during 1950s to the massive of 241 million tons during 2019. And the father of Green Revolution, Miss Swaminathan, who has contributed towards this Green Revolution. Let me take you to the next reform, that is New Economic Policy 1991. Indeed, one of the major economic reform witnessed by our economy that opened the door of the Indian economy for the global exposure for the first time.
The three parameters that were the major pillars of this policy are liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Liberalization meant for the elimination of control of government and providing greater autonomy to the business enterprises. For this, there was like industrial licensing was abolished in this, except for a few industries, given free control to the enterprises. Next is privatization, where there was transfer of ownership of management control from public sector to private sector, and almost around 6 industries were reserved for public sector and rest other were privatized. Next is globalization, which helped to integrate the world global economies, the interconnection of the economies as a whole, which helped our country to open the gates, which showed a positive impact that our trade was not enclosed in the boundaries of a country and it just moved ahead. Foreign trade increased, foreign direct investment opened the doors, which helped the country to generate employment, infrastructure, utilize its resources. Ultimately, it had a very positive and major impact on our economy. Next reform was GST. So the launch of GST can be considered as a very historic moment when it was introduced in the session of the Parliament on 1st of July 2017. This was one of the biggest reforms which seek to streamline the taxation of trade in goods and services, reducing the process, and it increased the ease of doing business. GST was success, as it can be seen that the economic survey of 2017-18 revealed that with the implementation of GST, there was an increase in the base of indirect taxpayers, which helped the country to increase its revenue resources. So it helped the government to increase the resources and move ahead for the planning and development process. So let's talk about the current scenarios. Till now, we have discussed what were the major parameters which helped the economy to evolve, but now the current scenario of our Indian economy is something different because the world in 2020 witnessed a novel COVID-19 virus, which has posed the most formidable economic challenge, not only to our country, but also to the world as well. And the economic impact of this COVID-19 has been largely destructive. It can be clearly seen, and it can be said that it is one of the most destructive recession that has been witnessed since 1930s. Globally, there is a severe recession of the economies because this pandemic has led the number of persons were unemployed, production held down, lockdowns were there, no economic activity was being conducted. And that is why our projected growth rates are also declined. We can see that IMF has also lowered the economic growth projection of India that was earlier 6.1 and now it's being 4.8% of year 2019-20. And now with the second wave that has hit the country, the future prospects are also being lowered down because it is going to take some time, and India is really struggling to move ahead to the road of recovery and revive its economy back from this COVID scenario. Next up is the economic survey that was of 2021 conducted. We can clearly see from this picture that despite the evolution, the graph was moving ahead, but when this phase of COVID pandemic came in, the figures are going down, which clearly shows the adverse effect
You have
that was
2 minutes left. 10 minutes are over.
Witnessed the lowered structure of the economy, and each and every sector, either agriculture, forest, fishery, they were going down and down due to this pandemic. I hope our country soon revive back from this state. So I can conclude by saying that India has although come a way long back from where Britishers has exited it. And now as we are moving ahead to the 75th year that is going to complete in 2022, it is clearly a new milestone that we should celebrate ahead. Thank you.
am a participant in this presentation competition, and I'm the first member from Group C. My tag is C1. Today I'm presenting over the topic Evolution of Indian Economy in the Post-Independence Era, and this is a critical appraisal. India will celebrate its 75th Independence Day this year. Its development journey over the last 75 years has been marked by significant milestones and reform that enabled it to achieve substantial progress in many areas, including a rise in income level, growth, literacy, life expectancy, and a wide variety of other economic indicators. But it's a bitter truth that we can't deny by the fact that it is still needs to mend so that we take the first step towards the development of our country. No doubt we have rich country, we have rich monuments which have gone valuable day by day. We have many rich people in this country, but still our country is striving. Let us now talk about some of the main attributes of economics so that we can critically know about the 75 years of economic growth. The first one is income expands. India has made a tremendous growth in the field of income expansion. The GDP, gross domestic product of India, has raised from 2,939 billions during 1950 to 56,330 billions in 2011. And in the year 2018, it was 1,40,776 billions. The average Indian citizens earned, that means the per capita income, was 7,513 during the year 1950, which rose to 41,255 in 2011, and now it has risen up to 92,565. These examples can show that Indians have gone through a high range of growth of independence since independence. But still, we Indians face income inequality. We have unequal distribution of income. Income inequality in India refers to the unequal distribution of wealth and income among its citizens. According to the CIA World Factbook, the Gini Index of India, which is a measure of income distribution inequality, was 35.2 in 2011, ranking 95th out of 157. Wealth distribution is also uneven, with one report estimating that 54% of the country's wealth is controlled by millionaires, which is the second highest after Russia as of November 2016. The richest 1% of Indians own 58.4% of wealth. 10% of Indians hold 80.7% of wealth, which is not fair. And by this, the rich is getting richer day by day, and the poor is still at a stagnant position, which is not a positive sign. Next, we have a major portion of economic, that is agriculture. Agriculture and its allied sector. Agriculture continues to be an important sector in the Indian economy as it generates livelihood for more than half of the population. The real gross value added by agriculture, forestry, and allied sectors like horticulture, floriculture, sericulture, and many more went up from around 1,502 billions in 1950 to around 22,263 billions as per the 2011 calculations. The advent of Green Revolution during the 1960s was a game changer for the country. The net production of food grains in India increased from around 48 million tons during the 15s to a massive 241 million tons during 2017. India still continues to be one of the largest producers of rice, wheat, many fruits and vegetables, and milk as well. But still, Indians have a low level of living. Agriculturists are facing many problems, as Indian agriculture is plagued by many of the problems. Some of them are natural and many are man-made. First of all, we have small and fragmented land holdings. Farmers do not have proper land, do not have sufficient land for the cropping. They have much ability, but they have less land to crop on. Then they have less quality seeds so that they are not able to cultivate it properly. They have lower level of irrigation facilities. They manures, fertilizers, and biocides are not biotical. Actually, they are made up from chemicals and which totally destruct up the crops. Lack of mechanism. Our Indian farmers do not get proper mechanism, so that as the farmers from other countries get, and they're not able to cultivate the crops properly. Then agricultural marketing. Agricultural marketing is not done properly. The crops are sold in a low rate by the farmers, and then further they are sold at a very higher prices to the local people, which becomes unfair for the agriculturists. Agriculturists get inadequate storage facilities as government do not provide proper storage hubs, and their crops get spoiled easily before the time. Farmers face scarcity of capital. They don't have proper sufficient capital to invest in their farms, and though their crops get spoiled earlier. Next, we have important sector in our economy, that is industrial sector. India is also made significant strides in the terms of industrial development since independence. The industrial policy of 1991 constituted a major economic reform and was introduced to reinvigorate the industrial sector. The policy dismantled the system of industrial license and opened the sector for greater private participation as well as foreign investment. In terms of real gross value added, manufacturing, construction, electricity supply, gas supply, water supply, all these sectors stood around rupee 401 billion during the 1950s, but presently the sector is valued at around 36,684 billions, which is a major transformation. But still, our country is facing lower level of technologies. We still have less advancement as according to other countries. In today's technology oriented world of 21st century, any country is considered powerful on the basis of many developmental parameters, among which the most prominent is technological advancement that country has made with the help of scientific acumen of its human resource. And the human resource of our India is not as developed as the other countries are. This is one of the main reasons why USA, China, and Japan, Russia are considered developed countries and why India is still counted under developing nations. It's not that Indians do not have any scientific knowledge in the past, but a series of political, social, religious changes had their negative repercussions on our scientific advancement and pulled us back from a curious and mindful nation to a imitative and monotonous one. We have many developmental programs in our India, in our country. India has also come a long way in terms of improving its human development indicators. Literacy rates have gone higher. Many of the social economic indicators like participation in education, like parents have been enrolled to the schools, they're sending their kids for gaining education. These are all signs of development in the country, but still there is stagnancy in the development of the country. The major reasons for lower development rates are higher rate of population, dependence of agriculture, and due to dependence on agriculture, the occupational structure of the country gets disturbed. There are lower rates of savings and investments, and the socio-political conditions of our country are not also that well. So at the end, I would like to conclude my presentation by saying that our country is undergoing many high-level changes and have been going many high-level changes and is still going, but there are many still to be, for which we have to take individual steps, not by blaming others, not by blaming government and any other institution, but by taking initiatives ourselves. Giving these presentations will not help until we take individual initiatives to transform our nation. Our youth needs to be in charge to take initiatives for the development of our country, and we will see and we will notice a major change in coming years. Thank you and have a thoughtful day ahead.
C4, please start your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes. Should I start recording your time?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so today my tag name is C4, and today I'm going to present on the evolution of Indian economy since independence. As we all know that we are going to celebrate 75th Independence Day this year, but we take count of the economy from the last year, that is 74th Independence Day, that is 15th August 2020. And now I would like to tell you that Indian economy is all about literacy, growth, and income rates, life expectancy, which helps the country to grow, not in case of GDP, but the overall growth of the country. So here we have the major changes which came because of the changes in the economy as the economy grew. First is incomes expand. The incomes of the people, the general people that are working in the country, the employers, the daily wagers, it grew. And the second one is agriculture boom. There was an agriculture boom because of the Green Revolution that took place in the 1960s. And we all know that 70% of the population, has their income from agriculture mainly. And because of Green Revolution, we could see a major change in the GDP of the country, and also many people were employed as well. The third is industry diversifies. The industry also diversified because of the economic reforms that took place in 1991, which were privatization, globalization, and liberalization respectively. They were a major change for the industry as they helped to boom the economy and the industries as well. So here we have the significant transitions that took place. The first one was Green Revolution, which took place in 1960s, and it helped the economy boom. And mainly it is that the farmers have to use the HYV seeds, that are high yielding variety seeds, and irrigation facilities was also there. The use of pesticides and fertilizers were also initiated by the government, and which was the whole movement, that is Green Revolution. The second is Operation Flood. It was launched on 13th January 1970. It was mainly the milk production in the country increased, and it was a major source of employment for the people, who had domestic animals such as cows, etc. And it was a major generator for the people who were in rural areas, because it was the only source of income for them, mainly because in 1960s, after the Green Revolution, there were some people who were not involved in agriculture as well, and the government had to do something for it, and therefore they launched this Operation Flood. The major economic reforms that were taken in 1991. The first is liberalization. We know liberalization is the process or means of elimination of control of the state over economic activities. The government had no control over it. They had a control, they had a common eye to the activities that were going on, but they had no hand in it, because they were only supporting it, whatever it was going on in the country. The second is globalization. The term globalization refers to the integration of the economy of the world with the world economy. It means that the domestic country, that is India, is opening up with the rest of the world. That is, we are helping in import and export. That was the main reason for globalization, and also the introduction of new brands and technology in the country. The third one is privatization. It means the transfer of ownership, management, and control of the public enterprises to private sectors. And there was an open contract between the private sector and the public sector, that the public sector would not would have a minimum minimum term relationship with them, and so they thought that only the private sector should boom here now, because as we know that the public sector was not having enough materials and management that were not holding it together. Yeah. Here is why we need there was a need for economic reforms in 1991, because of the poor performance of the public sector. We all know how the public sector works, because there is irregulation of work communication there. And the second one is adverse BOP, balance of payments, as we were importing much, and we were importing too much and exporting less. So there was heavy tariffs and heavy import duty on us, and because we had less amount in the country, but we were importing much and much, because there was higher prices of the foreign goods that were being imported in the country. So the third one is inflationary pressure, that is the rising of the prices. The rising of prices was only due to we were importing mainly the essential goods, which were irrepressible in the country, which were not being made in the country, and which was a major problem for the people who were daily wagers and the lower middle class. The next one is fall in foreign exchange reserves. There was a foreign exchange reserve with the government had to import petrol. Mainly the essential goods which were not being made in the country had to be imported. The things that were being imported were also, helping in declining the foreign exchange reserves that the country had at that time. The next one is economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in India. As we know that in 2019, COVID hit the country, and it also hit the economy in a very bad way, in which we can say the country is still now recovering from it, and we shall see what it is. The first initiative that was taken by a prime minister, that it was Atmanirbhar Bharat. The aim of the Atmanirbhar Bharat was that the prime minister pictured it as an opportunity, not a crisis, but as an opportunity to become self-reliant, so that we can make the products on by ourselves and become self-reliant, which will help our country to grow our economy, and we can also help our country, and we do not need any other country, and we can contribute to ourselves. So mainly the exports and imports were the main thing that changed. There was a decline in exports and imports of the country in 2020 as compared to April 19, as due to Atmanirbhar Bharat, we were not importing much things. We were exporting, but we were not importing much things, because we were in the race of becoming a self-reliant country. And today, I think it is one of the best ways we could ever do it, and that is the reason we are, helping our economy to become stable again. And I hope we would enhance it and help our future generations for it as well. Thank you.
Okay. So now the next participant is C5.
So today I'm gonna give my presentation on the topic Evolution of Indian Economy in the Post-Independence Era. The objective of me behind giving this presentation is to make you all familiar with the state of Indian economy in 1947, the year of independence, and to make you all understand the factors that led to the underdevelopment and the stagnation of the Indian economy on the eve of independence. Further, I would like to tell you beforehand the topics I would like to cover: development, inequality, the foreign trade, and the demographic condition, along with occupational structure and infrastructure. We all know that India was under British rule for more than 200 years, and after a lot of hard work and patience, we were able to gain the independence. Now, I would like to discuss few factors that were responsible and for the underdevelopment of our economy after independence. First, I would like to give you an introduction. On 15th August 1947, India woke up to a new dawn of freedom. Finally, we were masters of our own destiny. After some 200 years of British rule, the job of the nation building was now in our hands. The leader of independent India had to decide, among other things, the type of economic system most suitable for our nation, a system which would promote the welfare rather than a few. The primary objective before of British rule was to make India a supplier of raw material and a consumer of finished good. So main thing was to change their ideology. Before we move further, I would like you to explain a small term which would be used randomly in my presentation, that is colonism. Colonism refers to a system of political and social relation between the two countries, of which one is the ruler and the other is colony. I would like to explain you the first factor that was responsible for the underdevelopment of our Indian economy on the eve of independence. That is the low level of economic development. I would like to explain this point before British rule and on the eve of independence. India was well known for its handicraft industry. In the field of cotton and silk textile, metals and precious stone works, these products enjoyed a wide market base of reputation of fine quality of material used and the high standards of craftsmanship seen in all imports from India. The colonial government never made any sincere attempt to estimate India's national and per capita income. The estimate given by Dr. V.K.R.V. Rao suggested that the growth rate of GDP was about 2% per annum, while the growth of per capita output was just 0.5% per annum. After the British rule and after few years of Indian leaders working on the economic development, we were introduced with the LPG, liberalization, globalization, and privatization, which led to the development of economy. Now I would like to explain the agriculture sector. Agriculture, India's economy under the British rule remained fundamentally agrarian. About 85% of the country's population lived in villages and lived on agriculture. However, the agriculture sector continued to experience stagnation and deterioration. This was because of the Britishers. The backward agriculture sector was due to the land revenue system, the Zimedari system, the forced commercialization of agriculture and the partition of the country was one of the basic reasons of Indian economy of being at a low level on the eve of independence and after the eve of independence. Moving further, I would like you to explain is the industrial sector. Industrial sector is the industries of the nation. Our country was world famous for the handicraft industries that was declined due to the Britishers. No commercial India could not develop a sound industrial base under colonial rule. Even modern industry base was allowed to come up after independence. This sector needed modernization, diversification, and increasing in investment. And that was really a huge task for India on the eve of independence. This sector was backward because of the deindustrialization, that means decline of Indian handicraft industry. The capital good industries were lacking, limited operation of the public sector, discriminatory tariff policy, competition from the machine-made products, introduction of railway in India, and the lack of heavy and the basic industries. These all the factors that are explained by me were the British rule under India that were responsible for the backwardness of our industrial sector, even though we gained independence from them. Moving next, I would like to explain the foreign trade. Foreign trade. India has been an important trading nation since the ancient time, but the restricted policies pursued by the colonial government adversely affected the structure and the composition, as well as the volume of Indians' foreign trade. Indians' foreign trade was backward because India was the net exporter of raw material and an importer of finished good. Britain had the monopoly control over the foreign trade. That also led to the drain of India's wealth. So the foreign trade was even backward and not a good point of industrial growth in India. Now next, I would like to explain the demographic profile that plays a basic role in the development. Demographic profile means the birth rate and the death rate. The demographic conditions during the British rule suggested all the features of backward economy. Various details about the population was first collected to the census in 1881. The second stage of transition was in 1921, and the Great Year of Divide was 1921. This is known as Great Year of Divide because after this the population was on a continuous increase and never came on a slow rate or a low rate after the Great Year of Divide. Now, I would like to explain the adverse demographic condition of India on the eve of independence. There was high death and birth rate that was 40 and 48 per thousand respectively, high infant mortality rate that was 218 per thousand, mass illiteracy, low life expectancy, low standard of living, lack of public health facilities, especially female, and the literacy level was about 7%. That is a very, very low term. And still now we are fighting to increase this literacy level, though it has increased a bit, but still the fight is on. Moving forward, we have underdeveloped infrastructure. Infrastructure means the roads, electricity, and the things that surround us. The absence of good roads, electricity generation, health, education, communication, etc. However, some efforts have been made to develop the basic infrastructure like roads, railways, ports, water transport, telegraph by the Britishers, but their main motive was not to provide amenities to India, but for the colonial interest. That was their own interest and benefit. Moving next, if it is the primary sector. Our Indian economy was more dependent on primary sector other than the other two sectors that play an important role. Primary sector means the farmers. The largest share of the workforce, which was 72%, was engaged in agriculture, 10% in manufacturing, while 18% workforce was engaged in service sector only. There were some positive effects that Britishers left after the colonial rule, that were providence of facilities, of transport facilities, that were railway and the roads. There was development of ports, though for their own colonial interest, but were very beneficial for us after independence. Provision of post and telegraph service. We were blessed with the telegraph service after the British rule. British government left a base of strong. There were many more positive and negative impacts of British rule under India. Now I would like to conclude my topic, that is, India is a diverse country with a population of 130 crore people, and the number is increasing every day at an alarming rate. The state of Indian economy is scenic with the political and social climate of the country. India had its own ups and downs in terms of economic development, while India was one of the strongest economy in the world in the 10th and 11th century. That took downwards turn with a complete nocitive under the plundering of the British regime for 200 years. After all the above slides, we can conclude that today we have overcome many of the above problems from 1947 to 2021. There's a great change, but there are many more on the way that we expect. भारत हर भारतीय के हृदय में बसता है. भारत में रहकर भारत से प्रेम न हो, ऐसा संभव नहीं. Thank you.
My tag name is
C6, and my presentation is on Indian economy at the eve of independence. अगर हम इंडिया की बात करें तो इंडिया क्या लार्जेस्ट, अगर हम एरिया की बात करें तो इंडिया 7th लार्जेस्ट कंट्री है. अगर हम पॉपुलेशन की बात करें तो इंडिया सेकंड रैंक रखती है. और अगर हम डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री की बात करें तो ये सबसे बिगेस्ट डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री है. और इंडिया को न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट भी कहा जाता है. और आर्मी की बात करें तो ये सेकंड लार्जेस्ट कंट्री है और 5th डिफेंस बजट है इसका. फिर भी हमारा जो इंडिया है वो उसमें पॉवर्टी, स्टारवेशन, करप्शन, इलिटरेसी क्यों है? बिफोर 1947 ना हमारे जो हमारे इंडिया को क्या है गोल्डन बर्ड से बोला जाता था. बट आफ्टर दैट क्या मुगल्स आए, ब्रिटिशर्स आए और उन्होंने हमारी जो ट्रेजरी है उसको क्या इन्वेड कर लिया, जिसके कारण क्या है फिर हमारा पार्टीशन हो गया इंडिया और पाकिस्तान का. और आफ्टर पार्टीशन जो हमारा एग्रीकल्चर है वो मेन ऑक्यूपेशन था. मोस्टली जो पीपल थे वो क्या उस पे एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड ही थे. उसके बाद क्या हमारे जो इंडिया में ना 2 क्राइसिस आए, 1991 और 2008. उसके 2 रीजंस थे. 1991 का क्राइसिस था जो उसका जो मेन रीजन था वो था इंटरनल ट्रेड, जिसके कारण क्या हमारी पेमेंट क्राइसिस की प्रॉब्लम आई और क्या हमारा ट्रेड बैलेंस बिगड़ गया. ठीक है, हमारे इंपोर्ट्स कम हो गई. ठीक है, उसके बाद हमारा सेकंड क्राइसिस आया 2008 को, जिसको हम ग्लोबल रिसेशन से भी जाना जाता है, जिसके कारण हमारा जो ट्रेड है बाकी कंट्रीज के साथ, क्या इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम है ना उसमें 3 टाइप्स की सेक्टर्स आ जाते हैं. एक कैपिटलिस्टिक इकोनॉमी आती है, एक सोशलिस्टिक इकोनॉमी आती है और एक मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी आती है. जो हमारा इंडिया ना वो मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी है. इट मीन्स कि इसमें बोथ प्राइवेट सेक्टर और गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर आता है. अब बिफोर और आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस क्या है? बिफोर इंडिपेंडेंस जो हमारे इंडिया को गोल्डन बर्ड से बोला जाता था, जो मोस्टली पीपल थे वो एग्रीकल्चर पर डिपेंड थे और हमारे जो रिसोर्सेज, बट जब इन्वेडर्स आए उन्होंने हमारे रिसोर्सेज को क्या खत्म कर दिया. और फिर क्या है हम फिर भी क्या है जिसके कारण क्या है हमारे आफ्टर पार्टीशन भी इंडिया को जिसे गोल्डन बर्ड से बोला जाता था, अब क्या है उसको बैकवर्ड इकोनॉमी में जाना जाता है. बट आफ्टर दैट 1947 जो इंडिया के लोग हैं उन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की और एग्रीकल्चर को मेन ऑक्यूपेशन बनाया और जिसके कारण क्या है हमारा एग्रीकल्चर बहुत बढ़ गया. और इन्होंने क्या इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड भी शुरू कर दिया. फ्रूट्स एक्सपोर्ट करने शुरू कर दिए, वेजिटेबल्स एक्सपोर्ट करने शुरू कर दी. और फिर जिसके कारण क्या हमारा इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन भी आ गया. स्टार्टिंग एग्रीकल्चर का पहले अब आप देखें तो मेन कंट्रीब्यूशन 50% से भी ज्यादा जीडीपी है हमारा एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर हमें देता था. और एग्रीकल्चर को क्या बैकबोन भी कहा जाता है इंडियन इकोनॉमी की. आफ्टर दैट इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर की बात करें तो हमारी जो स्टार्टिंग में इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर था वो बहुत पुअर कंडीशन में था. जो हमारा जीडीपी नेशनल इनकम थी इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर से वो भी बहुत कम थी और टेक्निक्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन भी बहुत बैकवर्ड थे. और हमारे क्या 2 ही मेनली इंडस्ट्रीज थी, एक कॉटन की थी और एक जूट की थी. बट आफ्टर दैट जब इन्होंने एग्रीकल्चर के कारण ही हमें रॉ मटेरियल वगैरह मिल गया, जिसके कारण क्या होगा इंडस्ट्री सेटअप होनी शुरू होगी और हमारा क्या ग्लोबली जो हमारा जो वर्ल्ड है वो ग्लोबली रिप्रेजेंट करना शुरू हो गया ड्यू टू इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन. ग्रोथ रेट आप देख सकते हो इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर की. अब इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर क्यों हमारे रीजंस क्या है स्लो ग्रोथ रेट का? फर्स्टली रीजन है कि हमारी जो डोमेस्टिक डिमांड है वो बहुत कम है. सेकंड रीजन क्या है हमारा जो आरबीआई है रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट हमारा बहुत ज्यादा है, जिसके कारण क्या हमारी इंडस्ट्रियल ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही. और तीसरा रीजन क्या हमारी जो एक्सपोर्ट्स हैं वो बहुत कम हो गई हैं, जिसके कारण क्या है ड्यू टू ग्लोबल फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस के कारण. अब नेक्स्ट है कि रियल ग्रोथ रेट अगर हम देखें ना हमारे जो इंडिया की है वो सर्विस सेक्टर के कारण ही हुई है. अब आप देख सकते हो कि सर्विस सेक्टर भी है हमारा, जो क्या, और जो सर्विस सेक्टर है उसकी मेन डेवलपमेंट किसके कारण हुई है, एग्रीकल्चर और इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर के कारण, जिसके कारण क्या हमारा फिर सर्विस सेक्टर के कारण हमारा फॉरेन ट्रेड भी बढ़ गया, ठीक है, और रियल ग्रोथ रेट भी हमारी बढ़ गई, और हमारा जो इंडिया वो ग्लोबली रिप्रेजेंट होना शुरू हो गया। आप एग्जांपल्स देख सकते हो, टीसीएस और एचसीएल इसके एग्जांपल्स हैं। नेक्स्ट है कि हमारा जो इकोनॉमी है फिर डेवलप्ड होनी शुरू हुई ड्यू टू इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म 1991, वो थी लिबरलाइजेशन। लिबरलाइजेशन के कारण क्या हो गया, हमारी जो डिमांड है वो बढ़ गई और पॉवर्टी क्या है वो कम होना शुरू हो गई, जो क्या है जिसके कारण क्या है हमारे जो मेनली जो इसका कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर ने इसमें जो है अपना कंट्रीब्यूशन दिया है। अब जो 2014 और 2020 है ना, वो उसको क्या ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी बोला जाता है, क्योंकि उस टाइम पे जो नरेंद्र मोदी हमारे पीएम बन गए थे और सबके मन में यही बात थी कि अब हमारी इकोनॉमी क्या डेवलप करेगी। फिर क्या 2019 में कोरोना वायरस आ गया, जिसके कारण क्या हमारी जो इकोनॉमी है वो फॉल करना शुरू हो गई। पहले जो हमारा जीडीपी था वो 6 क्वार्टर्स में था, 6 क्वार्टर्स में लो हो गया था, बट जब 7th क्वार्टर में फिर क्या होना शुरू हो गया, बढ़ गया। पर जब 2019 में कोरोना वायरस आया तो सब कुछ क्या हमारी इकोनॉमी क्या स्लो डाउन होना शुरू हो गई। अब इंडिया, हमारी जो इंडिया को इकोनॉमी को 2020 में 5th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी कहा जाता है, और 2000 में हमारी जो इंडियन इकोनॉमी थी उसकी इकोनॉमिक टू $500 बिलियन थी, और 2007 में हमारी इंडियन इकोनॉमी $1 ट्रिलियन थी, और 2015 में हमारी इंडियन इकोनॉमी 2 ट्रिलियन थी। और हमारा बोला जाता है, थैंक यू।
Very good afternoon to everyone. This is C8. So here I begin with my PPT, Scenarios in Indian Economy since Independence. After the independence of India, India has gone through many diverse challenges. But still, let me tell you about the current economic status of India. Today, India stands at 7th largest economic standards in the world. But this success is not reached overnight. India has worked, Indian government, Indian citizen has worked overnight for this. The challenges that India faces, some of them are unemployment, poor education standards, and inequality within different regions. The poor education standards is a major issue in today's world. Every student, every children is not getting education, due to which unemployment, less opportunities are being available. Inequality within the regions means every state, every city is not getting equal opportunities in today's Indian situation. This problem was a big issue in that time even. The Indian government has worked on it thoroughly. Due to their hard work, India has reached a good economic status. Economic expand. The GDP, the gross domestic product, has get through a general spike increase from 1950 to 2019. This spike increase in economic of the country is due to the hard work after the independence. This is not a one-day task. It takes years to increase such a income expand. But then also, today we have problem in our economy. Due to this, India is still an developing nation. The problem of overpopulation is a big issue today. The problem of overpopulation. India is at the second rate of the highest population. In no time, India can cross China either. Why? Due to the illiteracy, due to the less education facilities, due to the high unemployment, which brings shortage of food. The low caste people, the poor people, don't want their children to study. They want their children to earn, which generally brings low growth of national income. This is main point in today's life event due to which India is still a developing nation. In spite of this, the sectors which provide income to our country are different, like defense manufacturing, agriculture, which is the backbone of our nation, space, railways, bank facilities, telecommunications, etc. Let me explain to you some of them. The role of agriculture. India ranks second worldwide farm output. It is a big part of world's agriculture outputs. For a country like India, agriculture is of the prime importance. It brings employment to our country. Even 80% of employment of our country is from agriculture. The labor countries sustain national income. It is a source of foreign exchange, an important source of raw material for many industries, not only for India, but for the foreign countries too. Next is the role of industry in our country. For any country, industry plays a big role. The two types of industries are cottage and small-scale industries, which occupy an important place in Indian economy. The industries are contributing half of the total industrial production in our country. The gainable economy activity is 5 times the number of people employed in the large and the medium-sized industries. Moreover, the main advantage of the small-scale industries are the unemployed or the illiterate peoples can work in this, which brings a new opportunity for them to earn their livelihood. Next is the large-scale industries. Large-scale industries means large investment, which ultimately brings large economic height to our country. In India, the large-scale industries are the one with fixed assets of more than 100 million rupees or 10 crores. The Indian economy reels highly on the Indian industries for economic growth, generation of foreign currency, and creation of job and opportunities for the different millions of Indians. Next is the role of service sector. Service sector means the general services area, the banks, the IT, the railways, the different sectors of a nation, finances, and many more. They brings a digital economic spike to our country. Indian IT giants such as Infosys, the most familiar, VIPRO, TCS have made a mark on the global platform, which ultimately brings a high spike, a good gradual increase in our economy. 60% of the GDP contributions come from this service sector. Next is recent developments in the economy of India. From last 5 to 10 years, these are some of the recent developments. GST has come recently. Although it is not very much welcomed by our society, but it's really bring profit to our nation. IBC, Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, also plays a major role. The Startup India, the Digital India, these are the schemes which government has followed, due to which our country is growing up, stepping up, taking a new pace in the whole world participation. Digital India not only brings the natural economic increase, but it also brings us to stand shoulder to shoulder with other nations, which are ahead of us. Digitally means practically. So, next is the future of Indian economy. The future of Indian economy is greatly dependent upon the strategy for New India Act 75. This is a document which is shared by NITI Aayog. And these objectives are doubling the farmer's income. Doubling the farmer income means that the farmer will get more input which help them to produce double, triple outputs. And moreover, the Make in India scheme is very much popular these days. This is a scheme made by our PM Narendra Modi, and due to this, India is getting a spike profit, spike increase in our economy. Previously, the GDP of our nation was 17%. And due to this scheme, the GDP has increased to 22%. And by 2023, it will get a high rise. Achieving a good GDP needs a good investment. Investment at the current rate is 29%, but the government is working on it. And due to the pressure, due to the efforts, it will generally increase to 36% by 2023. Investment will really bring output. Next is the role of youth, the role of generations. In today's world, youth is the most important and the dynamic segment of the population in any country, not only India. It is believed that developing countries with a large youth population brings a tremendous growth, provided they not only bring the tremendous growth, provided they should have proper opportunities, proper facilities. They should have proper education, health, protection, guidance, and guarantee their rights. Every child should have the right to get the education, and the government should seek into this purpose. But they need the required support, as we all know. The economic triggers, the economic of India will trigger only when the countries will have more hand to work available, then more mouths to feed. But now it is opposite to it. But when we'll get more hands to work, the economy won't look back.
Sorry for the interruption. Your 10 minutes are over. You have 2 minutes left.
Fine, ma'am. I'm also done. This is today's world spike. Now you can see that agriculture is, our Indian economy is halfly dependent on the agriculture. Second is on the manufacturing, then construction, and then the other regions. This is the main graph which Indian economy depends upon. Next is, what is the effect of COVID-19 pandemic on the Indian economy? The confirmed cases of COVID-19 are continuously rising over India with an average rate of 23%. In today's newspaper from Hindustan Times, it was written from CM of Jammu and Kashmir that due to the COVID-19, the economy of that state is getting collapsed every day. They are highly getting affected due to this COVID-19. Other than this, GDP rate decreases, investor confidence was hit, market investment decreases. There will be a mismatch in demand and supply, business facing an uncertain failure. To compensate with these losses, government is taking time, but output will soon be resolved. Thank you very much.